Det här är en fågel!
Vi fars och innan icke.
Birkarl, kofte!
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Longhouse, a show about art, politics, philosophy, culture, etc., all with a true right and, of course, Nordic perspective. Now, this time we're going to be talking a bit more about, well, as I put it in my teaser tweet the other day, what do seed oil disrespecters, bodybuilders, engineers, economists, and psychologists all have in common? And usually I find that in my audience and in the community, there's a lot of young men who have stumbled through various pieces of, Luddic path, you called it self-improvement, and then ended up in the dissident right. What do you think about that?
Yeah, good evening, everyone, by the way. So, yeah, my idea for this stream was initially that we could take a closer look at all of these hidden pipelines that apparently exist between people who go into self-improvement, self-help, and end up in some type of right-wing position, because that seems to be a problem that, you know, if you're in the Twitter sphere or somewhere else, there are some of these blue checkmark commentators that seem to bring up how, you know, you could become racist if you lift weights, or like you said, you know, we're getting into the idea of engineering making people into conspiracy theorists. But generally, this is also going to be a much broader look at the concept of self-help as it relates to other demographics, as well as the kind of like disenfranchised millennials and Zoomers who become based by lifting weights, because there's a significant chunk of this kind of self-help movement, or things that go within that category, that are maybe not as helpful, I think, or almost counterproductive to us in sort of the dissident right.
Yes, I had a bit of a sort of knee-jerk reaction to it the other day on Twitter, where I wrote, "She isn't hanging out in esoteric right-wing Twitter threads waiting for your based schizo takes. It's just your politics being commodified." And that's, you know, part of the when the aesthetic of say self-improvement, as in say bodybuilding or something like that, or the aesthetic of the dissident right becomes like a certain sort of cloak that someone can drape themselves in and sell you basically a lifestyle through it. That's a warning sign and something we should resist, I think. But it's also important to understand where the line between grift and actual advice goes. So with us today we have two of the usual suspects. Birkarl, welcome back.
Yes, hello. Self-improvement pipeline experience coming right in.
What's your experience with the self-improvement pipeline?
Well, basically, the golden one got me into the gym, and now I'm here.
So the classic lifting weights into racism, then?
No, I think I was racist even when I was fat.
Did it make it worse?
Yes.
Okay. And Leo, what about you? Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Well, I don't know. I think it was actually engineering that got me into the well, not the racism that I had from childhood, but the pipeline is strong, and
yeah,
eventually In my case, it was more going back to the gym, really.
Mm-hmm. I think for me it was a bit of everything, honestly. Probably the most effective one was economics and history, followed by probably by engineering, and then everything else sort of compounds. But if we're gonna pick like one or two, it's probably economics and engineering for me.
I also have an engineering background, but I'd never felt like that actually made me more right wing. So maybe I was already there before I started. It's going to be interesting maybe if you could elaborate a little bit more on how like these two things connect, because I can sort of see it, but I didn't experience that myself.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think we have a slide about it later, so we can probably look into it when we get there. Or do you want to talk about it right now?
No, we can talk about it when we get there. Just speaking for myself, I mean, I've always had like some sort of a lot of these more contrarian political dispositions, but some of the stuff that I feel like kind of fleshed out a lot of the red pilling process for me was looking at actually self-improvement in terms of just let's say like sales psychology or just psychology in general, where you have these books like Persuasion, for instance, that go into detail about how human beings work when you're trying to sell to them, when you're trying to market to them. So it's kind of like the Edward Bernays look at human beings. And when you realize that and you see how that's being kind of applied by the broader systems, you get a slightly different view on politics and on who the good guys and bad guys are and so forth.
It feels a bit like you watch something like Glengarry Glen Ross. If you guys are familiar with that, it's a 1990s film with Al Pacino and what's his name?
Alec Baldwin.
Yeah, there's a lot of big guys in it. But it's sort of that marketing into strong masculinity, into manipulating people, but into am I being manipulated, basically. I think that's definitely a pipeline.
Yes, and it ends with manipulating yourself.
Ooh, very good. Just a sip of beer here. I'm drinking a golden ale, if anyone's interested.
So we're having a so-called red day here in Norway. So we've had the day off.
That's true. It is Ascension Day, at least here in Norway. I'm not sure what the rules for when or where Ascension Day is being practiced, but if you're a Christian and you're taking this seriously, I hope you have a good Ascension Day. I see a lot of the usual people in the chat here: Nordanon, Monophthalmos, Lanner95, welcome. Sorry, Leo.
No, it's fine. It's Ascension Day here as well. I'm drinking water because I'm going to the gym after we're done here, so...
You're doing better than me.
I was trying to schedule it before, but I'm having a little bit of bad weather luck here. So it's been intermittently raining and being sunny between the rain.
We have the same thing. Yeah,
I've been trying to fix my deck here, but it took longer than I had anticipated. So the gym will have to wait. It will be gym night.
Okay. Luddic, did you want to talk any current events? I know we covered the Democrats in Norway the past couple of streams. There's been quite a few developments there.
Yeah, there's been some new developments, but I thought for this stream we would just kind of jump right into the presentation and I could try to weave some of that stuff into it. I realized with these streams being as long as they are usually, I was thinking that we might separate, these kind of current events things from the actual streams, because you have the people who come for the current events and then the people who come for the
that's fair.
The meat and potatoes. So I mean, if some of that stuff I can actually weave into the presentation as is.
Yeah,
so
it's not I think it's an event or a happening that's gonna stay static for a while, but it's still some interesting lessons to be taken from it. But I agree. We can put that away for another time. Okay. So I'm going to bring up the presentation here. The self-improvement and politics presentation. So, is there anything we want to cover before we start diving into the life of an improver?
Well, I guess the basic idea of self-improving or setting standards for yourself is inherently has qualities that don't fit tolerance and acceptance at any level.
Yeah, I think being off the configuration where you're, starting a self-improvement journey at all is, you're already a couple of steps ahead of an average leftoid. and I think that's also why a lot of people doing that are men, as the old saying goes, that women are and men become. It's something that interests young men, I think, a lot more in terms of developing yourself. And
well, I think we're getting into that in the presentation, because I linked some articles and some various things about, like, if you look at self-improvement literature and who's actually into this stuff, then I think you're going to find that there are a surprising amount of women into self-improvement. It's just that they're, like, the female angle into this stuff is very different from the male angle. Like, it's easy to look at it for us and see, like, okay, if you're a millennial or like an older Zoomer and you think about, okay, I need to build my biceps up, or get a better run time, or try to improve focus. But you have a lot of people, I think, that are stuck in different phases in their lives that really wish to improve themselves, to adapt. And that doesn't always involve like just getting a perfect kind of bowling score, or being able to sell to people or pick up women. So
yeah. I can see that. I was just taking the angle more of young men getting into Marcus Aurelius. For all I know, there's a huge swath of women out there reading Marcus Aurelius, but I doubt it.
No, not him, but like, you have other types of sort of self-improvement culture for women. I think the goal for them generally is just completely different than it is for men. I mean, especially like for young men, the goal is to, like, okay, you feel like, you didn't really get what you wanted out of, say, you went through like junior high school, and you didn't feel like you really were able to prove yourself, or you didn't learn what you wanted to learn, and you feel like there's a lot of untapped potential within yourself that you could reach onto something much higher, and actually get the best out of your 20s and your 30s and your 40s and so on. But like, you have people like say like women in their 40s who are kind of unhappy and have like a bit of a plateau, and they feel like they have to sort of improve themselves after they hit the wall, so to speak, or change their personalities.
That's when they get into like esotericism and like new age stuff.
Exactly.
I think a lot of young men find themselves in their mid-20s realizing that, I can do more, and also having the maturity to recognizing that. Some of us are lucky and start earlier, and some of us start later, but on average, I think that's usually when it starts.
So I think it has to be almost at the very, very late teens, or in early 20s, because it would be weird to me that someone in junior high school would be interested in self-improvement, or like reading books on self-development. It almost sounds a little bit bizarre. They're just trying to kind of adapt, or
you're just trying to survive basically at that point. Yeah. All right, let's talk about the 24-year-old improver. the paths that we can take in improving. So, first of all, we have the physical one. That is obviously the weightlifting and the bodybuilding. You have endurance and marathon and triathlons as well. I will say, I've noticed, maybe this is a European thing, but there's a lot more older men into these kinds of endurance sports than younger men. Younger men tend to go more for weightlifting. Do you guys have any experience with this?
Yeah, I thought about this a lot. I think even now that I'm starting to get a bit older, I sort of recognize that when I was younger, I was just more kind of explosive, both as a sort of personality and physically. And now I'm more kind of interested in just endurance myself. Like if I was to get more into training, I would just get more into endurance work. And I'm less interested in, and I don't see the same value, I guess, in doing like heavy squats and deadlifts as I used to. It's not that it's useless. It's just that I don't. I just think very differently about it. You know, it's much more sort of utilitarian and economic the way that I look at trying to improve myself physically. That I could, maybe try to pack on some muscle, but it would offer me very little advantage, economically, at least in my current situation. I don't know if you have similar thoughts.
I'd say that I have some experience with people I've known who have gone the route of like doing sports like football, that's soccer for you Americans, in their youth, and then finding that their body isn't able to keep up. They'll get wounded a lot more and be out of commission for longer, and so they swap over to quote unquote safer sports for an aging body in terms of like say cycling or similar endurance type sports, and that might be some part of it as well.
Yeah, that's definitely also an angle. And I see this like, I mean, with we talk about the kind of radicalization potential of the self-improvement. Like when we have like a younger man who will go into weightlifting, there's going to be a lot of learning there in terms, I mean, speaking for myself, when I in my late teens got into like lifting weights, trying to put on muscle, I felt like I learned a lot, not only about myself, but in terms of, say like genetics, for instance. That's like one of the important lessons that I took from learning about weightlifting, is that there's, you notice that there's a large disparity between people and how much they can perform, how quickly they can improve, and like the kind of upper limits of what they can do based on like their genes, really like their body physiognomy. And that was quite sort of red pilling. It's something that I was never told.
Yeah, because we're all equal,
school.
aren't we?
Yes, of course, everybody's equal, and everybody can do the same thing. And so just getting that kind of hard hierarchy slapped in your face with the weightlifting, like as far as older men, because I know there are people who kind of switch from, like you say, they switch from soccer into trying to do cycling because it's safer. But you also have like the kind of self-actualization angle with some of these like business people, or who spend a lot of time trying to be marathon runners, which is something that I almost see as just being, like from our perspective, from like the radical political perspective, is almost counterproductive. Like you have these men with a lot of experience and resources, and they spend like their free time trying to prepare for triathlons, and they just
they get really into like cooking or something like that.
Yeah, they're sort
like
of taking
they
themselves out of the political game, or they're taking themselves out of mentoring, or out of a lot of time they could have spent putting resources towards some political aim, towards more of like this kind of self-actualization through marathon. Or maybe I'm just a little bit pessimistic on that. I don't know if anybody could salvage salvage this stuff.
Well,
Yeah,
I will say, sorry.
And
Go
also
ahead,
endurance running, like marathons, is probably the gayest sport ever.
Just because it's Greek, is it?
No, because it's running.
Yeah, it is. No, I agree. It's,
I'm sure you can do, if you'd like to run, then you should do orientation or something like that. Work in where it's kind of difficult, when you have to learn how to navigate terrain, and after all, running in terrain, that's hard, and that's also has kind of some kind of use. I mean, running a marathon on asphalt without.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think it's just
asphalt running is horrible.
Yeah, it fucking destroys your legs.
Yeah, it's only. I think it's almost like it's only these stick thin urbanites who do it.
Yeah.
Well, as far as the you called it the when you were much more young, Luddic, this younger, more explosive ones. I guess I don't hit the deadlifts as hard, because I'm on copium about tall people doing deadlifts, but I think I'm in the explosive phase then, or in the later parts of it, right here. So as far as in my youth, I think I got the hierarchy beaten into me from playing ice hockey and soccer from 6 to 19, 20. So there's this constant hierarchy. Everyone knew who the best players was, who was the next and the next and the next, and who was the worst, and who were those who were sort of fighting it out in the middle. So moving to individual sports was, of course, extremely hard. And I had, there was, until I was like 20, 21, I never had to actually build self-discipline because I was so used to this group mentality and, everybody pushes everybody. And this is also a factor in self-improvement, discipline.
That's really something to be said about like the strength of the group in terms of doing stuff, because this having this kind of group that people are just pushing each other, it's like super powerful. I never did ice hockey myself, but I have the impression that that's like probably one of the most right-wing sports that you could get into, both in terms of demographics and like the hierarchy and the physicality of it.
Yeah, I have the pleasure of saying Alexander Barkov, who is currently the captain, I think, for Florida Panthers in the NHL. When we were 15 years old, I tackled him. He fell on his ass and had to quit the game because he was injured.
You can write that on his tombstone.
Yeah, Birkarl claim to fame right there.
By the way,
he's making millions, and I'm here sitting on it Thursday afternoon.
Following up, I'd actually like to petition the gayest sport ever as being cycling. If I could just like put that's like one step.
Yeah, they're maximum frame.
I don't think we can find anything that is gayer. Really.
Yeah, it's not a competition. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
I would say maybe like ice skating, but even that has some form of like art in it, in the movement and dancing. Yeah,
the dance does have this martial character.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. Like I think it's something about the cycling thing, and it's something that I've struggled with because it's one of like Evola's weirder takes is that like skiing is gay, as in like slalom skiing downhill, and because it's not masculine, it's feminine because you're not climbing the mountain. That's because he was a hiker, so obviously he's gonna like put that into his philosophy, but he saw it as like conquering the mountain and like doing something dangerous and overcoming it. That is the essence of hiking and like mountain climbing. But like going downhill on skis, it's just modernist fluff.
I love Evola, but I'm not going to try to impress him. I don't think it works. I remember like reading Ride the Tiger. It's like, oh, space travel. That sounds pretty fun. No, space travel's gay. It's like jazz is gay, and like everything you think is like kind of cool is like no.
Yeah,
it's just totally modernist gay. Just give up.
That's peak Evola though. That like whatever you enjoy, he's going to be more right wing and call you gay. So.
Yep.
But I do see some merit to the thought, and I think the same thing goes for cycling in that it's sort of like weirdly static in the sense that you're just sitting on the bike. So not that it doesn't require physical exertion, obviously it does. But
I think it requires a lot of physical exertion, and of course we're saying this a bit tongue-in-cheek. I know it's like extremely demanding to actually perform at the top of these sports, but at least for me, I always had this thing about cycling where it's like it has all of the kind of gayness of running, except like you're on this bike, you have this constant pressure up your crotch, and this kind of weird, like this sort of weird property about cycling where it seems like magically there are people doing it who are able to sort of maintain weight, even though they're putting insane amounts of hours into cycling. Like you see a lot of fatties that are reasonably good cyclists. You don't see this with runners because they would just destroy themselves. So. At least if you put a lot of time into running, you'll attain some type of runner's body. But cyclists, they seem to be able to maintain this kind of modern, soft, fat ass body, even though they're
they do because they pretty much just put all their work into their legs and thighs, right? So they have like these massive tree trunk thighs, and then and then like a skinny fat almost upper body compared to other athletes.
And they don't suffer any penalties for being heavy because the bike takes all of the weight off.
Yep. All right. So endurance sport, and then there's the sexual health aspect of the physical improvement. I think this is pretty given that the physical is an obvious, self-improvement angle.
Certainly.
And so
with the sexual health, I think no FAP would be one of the things that the people in the right-wing circles, so this self-improvement community does.
Yeah.
I mean, you have some of these gurus. I don't remember his name. It's like one of these Chinese guys who will try to do these courses with this kind of tantric, weird kind of sexual exercises and the sort of sexual endurance stuff that I sort of just understand on the periphery. I've never really gotten into actually practicing it, but I think sort of no FAP is quite healthy.
Yeah, well, I think that the primary vector for health coming from that kind of thing is essentially the negation of any use of pornography.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is the real value in it, and because if you can stop using that medium, that's even a reduction is very good for you.
Yeah, the 95 says do no FAP and you can see through walls.
The previous comment about semen retention you highlighted.
That's a boxing thing, isn't it? Sorry.
Well, not just. Well, yes. I think was it Muhammad Ali or someone who didn't, ejaculate for a long time. But even Nietzsche talked about reabsorption of the semen into the blood, and I think Solbra promotes it even in a fashion of you can have sex but just don't come.
Or you could have the orgasm, but you have to kind of squeeze the muscles in between there together, so you're holding back the actual semen.
I mean, at that point, isn't it just easier to just not have sex?
A friend of mine, quote unquote, tried that a few times. It's quite difficult and painful. So
give yourself blue balls. Yeah.
Well, I think it gets into the kind of tantra stuff that you mentioned earlier, and this is the source of it. And basically, not orgasming during sex. I think you still do it to, of course, establish dominance over the woman.
Well, fair enough. And then there's
this aspect of just learning self-control through this stuff, like really sort of pushing the yogic self-control element. I mean, there's probably a lot to that. I've just not been very successful myself.
Apparently, according to Nordan, Freud was into this as well. He informed his wife when he was 40 that they would no longer be having sex.
Well, that's
Freud conversation.
Weird motherfucker.
Yeah, Freud had enough, freaky stuff before that in his life.
Fair enough.
He got one life's worth.
It's easy for him to just sort of like say, well, no, it's enough.
A complete burnout.
Anyway, I mean, this crosses a bit over to the mental stuff as well, with meditation or self-motivation. There's reading and prayers and spirituality and sort of like maxing yourself on these kinds of things. I mean, I found it myself, especially the last couple of years with reading, sort of having this internal urge to always be reading something. And if I haven't been able to for a couple of days, I'll feel bad because I have so many philosophy books I need to keep up with.
I think
that's not something I had earlier or before. I think that's something that has come with age for me.
Something that's underestimated. Like, most people do not read. I mean, even people who are in these quote unquote kind of reading circles who talk about it, it appears to me that they're not actually reading the books that they say they're reading. I mean, you can just go on Goodreads and look at the reviews, and like, I'm usually flabbergasted by it because it seems like these people didn't actually read the material. They just parrot what some commentator said about it. So
Right.
I mean, you are kind of in like the top, 5% if you're like reading consistently stuff that's challenging to you, because most people just do not bother.
Yeah, well,
about
my
doing
battle is trying to stay consistent with it, right?
It's very difficult, at least for me as well.
I'm not sure about you guys if you have anything you've been improving on lately with the mental stuff.
Well, yeah, there are plenty of books that I've gotten in the last few years that have been sitting there. I think my main problem is that I first read a book and nothing, I remember nothing. And then I have to reread it, like line by line. And I read it in a fashion where I read every, page or paragraph twice and actually imbibe it on the second time. And it takes a whole lot of time.
For me, having started doing like YouTube stuff with this, it's been nice to have sort of like a catalog of all of those like moments where you go, hang on a minute, I remember insert author said something about in this book, let me go find it and maybe I can use it for something, and having made notes in the margin. But if I'm gonna have to remember everything off the top of my head rather than the core arguments, I mean, that requires rereading. I think that goes for a lot of people.
Yeah, that will require several rereadings, perhaps. I don't know. I'm currently taking a break from all the from all the more serious stuff. So I'm rereading the complete Chronicles of Conan again.
Oh yeah,
all the Robert E. Howard stories. So that's 1,000 pages to get through. I'm halfway through. And then I'm going to go back again. Speaking to the rereading, I'm going to reread the trifecta of Evola books for the third time.
right.
And then I'm going to, and that's Revolt Against the Modern World, Ride a Tiger, and then Among the Ruins. And then once I've gone through all of those again, I am going to read the Path of Cinnabar.
Bo Gruntman says, I loved to read when I was a kid, and then I got a computer and became a degenerate gamer, one of my biggest regrets. I can certainly relate to some extent, but then I started reading code, and then, it all came back around.
Then it was all downhill from there.
Yeah, I guess it got even worse.
Yeah, I have to admit to a completely degenerate love for complete trash novels. I think this was because of my first girlfriend. She had a huge collection of, some trashy novels, and for some reason I got into those. And you see those graphs. I once saw a graph on, I don't remember where I saw it. It was one of these memes where there was the what kind of books men like to read and what kind of books women like to read. And there was this completely I think men were number one in stuff like philosophy, history, and I guess fantasy was somewhere in the middle. And then women's were of course all these romance novels and stuff like that. And there was about 2% of men who also read the trash novels made for women. And I have to admit,
Norden asks if it's a Twilight book.
No Twilight. No, I haven't touched that. But all kinds of random trash. I use it to detox from.
I think you could learn a surprising amount of female psychology reading those.
Yeah, fair enough. You can through the eyes of women, what men they want, pretty much.
No, I found it completely opposite. I mean, they love to read it, but they do not want it in real life.
Interesting.
Yeah, I have
never read any of those, so I'm yeah.
I have this great big stack of 30 volumes of the Russian masters that I've been meaning to read. It's like, okay, it's 3,300 page books more by like Dostoevsky, Chekhov, Gorky, and all of those. And it's just gonna be miserable. It's like 30 books of complete Russian black misery.
Julius Flavius says that Harry Potter is better than Twilight. I haven't read Twilight. I will admit to having read Harry Potter growing up, because I'm off the generation it was targeted against. And I did enjoy it at the time, but after that, my father handed me his collected. There was this old like Lord of the Rings plus the Hobbit book in like one, what is called like an omnibus. So it was this like massive book that I had to work through, and after that there was no going back.
Based.
I knew there were better things out there. And so I read. The next up was what's his name? Wheel of Time. Robert something. I'm sure chat can tell me what his name is. Anyway, so in the mental sphere, obviously there's the mental self-improvement in our understanding of the world, as this entire thing seems to be about. It is the meditative stuff. Have any of you guys been into any sort of meditation?
Yeah, that was something I was into for a while, but I find it's very difficult to be consistent with it. It's also something that maybe if you're going to try that, you should have someone else to do it with, and that might seem to be almost kind of defeating the point. But I find it's just so difficult to motivate myself to do it that you end up just kind of slipping up. But it's I think it could be a useful exercise if you don't have anything else, to kind of just break away from things, because it. I mean, particularly if you work on a computer screen all day, it's very easily that you just get into this kind of rat dopamine mode, where it's just everything just becomes like a Skinner box, and you need to maybe just sit down for like 20 minutes and think about nothing, to just kind of reset a little bit in the mental hardware.
Yeah, it's something I noticed that I have to sort of actively work against myself, and even though, you know, I have a quote unquote respectable reason to sit on a computer for most of the day as a job, it's just doing that makes it harder to sort of like switch off once you're off work, and it annoys me that it's something that I need to sort of continuously keep myself in check with.
Yes, I mean, ideally, you know, my job would be like this kind of German style 8-hour coding marathon where you just have focus on the problem and you solve it. But in reality,
It's like Kraftwerk in the background.
Yeah, it's just like a constant stream of emails and Zoom calls and all these sort of people who wants like small things done and just ask about stupid stuff, or they bring you, you know, coffee and cookies or whatever. So it's kind of the exact opposite of this sort of focused mind that I would like to have.
And then there's self-motivation. I'm not sure, you're the one who made this, Luddic. I'm not sure what
I put
your
this
thoughts
through.
are
I mean, it's
behind
just
that.
like a very kind of general idea, but it does go under meditation. If you get into more or less a little bit more of this woo-woo space where people will
Fair
do
enough.
these sort of exercises like what do you call
You're
visualization
manifesting.
and this manifesting. We're gonna have to laugh more at this stuff later.
I'm gonna
But
manifest my dick into her. Yeah.
yes,
Jesus
manifest the woman of
Christ.
my life into the room. But there are sort of tricks that you can do to maintain, like you say, a mental hygiene and try to motivate yourself through trying to just clean out the way that you're thinking and be more conscious of what you're focusing on in your life. I added sort of prayer there as well, which is it you know, for people who are deeply religious, that is a kind of meditation. I mean, for you know, Buddhists, there's almost no separation there, right? Their meditation is kind of the prayer that they're doing.
Well,
So
yeah, I think for a lot of Christians it doubles, which is why they do it.
Yeah, I mean,
it brings to mind the Catholic Rosary, of course, where you are constantly saying this incantation,
Mm-hmm.
and it is a very strong strong thing, no doubt. I, of course, have never done such things, but I can definitely see the power in it.
Yeah, I suspect that's just sorry. That's just because we have lost ours, Birkarl, isn't it?
Well, you see these Orthodox chants videos on YouTube.
I mean,
guess
those Orthodox chants are pretty nice. I gotta admit, I have listened to. I haven't listened to. There's like videos popping up with like 5 hours of based Orthodox chants or something like that. But I have listened to like Orthodox chants in the background while just zoning out, and it's quite soothing, I will say.
Yeah, some of this stuff is quite very effective. The same as you're listening to this what do you call this, like these beta waves, alpha wave recordings, and these things that you can have on your headset to sort of force your mind to focus. It is a bit of cheating. Ideally, you'd want to be able to make yourself do that stuff.
Yeah.
So the last point I put on here is like the financial professional skills. I mean, you could slice this up into so many different categories, but I just broadly used these three here. So, I mean, this is where the the grind sets come in. It's like you try to improve your literacy, in something that's actually going to be economical for you. Because some of the physical self-improvement stuff can get into, vanity at some point, because there is a sort of diminishing health return, I think, on exercise, where when you reach a certain threshold of hours, it's like, okay, this is as healthy as you're going to get. Putting in, like, say, 5 hours extra of weightlifting, it's not going to really give you any type of reward. But
I think that goes for a lot of these. Not to be the all things in moderation guy, but a lot of these improvements have sort of like a diminishing returns point where it becomes an obsession. Like, you can actually spend too much time reading and just be a hermit and never really accomplish anything. You can spend too much time weightlifting and bodybuilding and then ending up having to like do steroids because you can't keep I have to get better, I have to keep improving, right? And the same thing goes for the hustle.
Go up.
Right, you get trapped in the line go upism of it, and even in the hustling as well, right? I have to get up at 1 a.m. because I have to do things, even though those things aren't actually spiritually productive or rewarding, right?
They're not even getting you closer to where you want to be. You get the dopamine ping, but when you look at the bigger picture, then you're still stuck. But this stuff, I mean, with like investing, if you just try to increase your financial literacy a little bit, you try to look at, how you could use your money, especially like when you get into, your 30s and 40s. I mean, some people get into this very early and they're able to say, like the early retirement community, for instance. I think that would be something that ties in with self-improvement.
Yeah.
What do they call it? The FIRE acronym.
Yeah, I don't remember. I just remember the guy, like, who's the front man, quote unquote, of it.
Tim Ferriss?
Yes.
Yeah.
FIRE
4-hour
movement.
work
Here it
week.
is.
Yeah.
Financial Independence Retire Early movement. Yes.
So, I mean, it is something that I think is... there's a sort of two sides to that, where like you have people like Evola and others of these more esoteric thinkers that are like poo-pooing people who think in terms of economics instead of action.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other side of it, there's something aristocratic about being able to retire in your late 30s and just do whatever you want. I mean,
that's a way out of it. Yes.
Yeah.
What I will say is that I think, when Evola says something, talks about the action, it's I don't think it's discounting that work versus action, that work needs to be removed. I think it's just that action, as an elitist, obviously is reserved for a societal elite. An emperor has to perform action, and a peasant has to work. But, that's also what allows the emperor to perform an action.
Yeah, and I think we are the finance guy, the get rich and retire. I think that is really just modernistic cope and degeneracy writ large. want to stop work now so you can have more time to sit at home and coom. That's all what they do
Yes.
anyway. I mean, look at the people who are in that kind of sphere.
Well, you know, it's just that you're born into this demonic machine, and you want to try to find a way out of it. And if you're lucky, maybe you do, right? But it's better to say that, hey, I don't want to have this machine around. How about we don't do this?
Like I said, I am a little bit divided on that, in a sense, you know, because the people who are kind of, you know, the current, I would consider sort of plutocracy or in the elite, are people who eventually made so much money, and that's just not like having 4 rental properties. I mean, like they were able to build a company, sell that company, and they sit with a large amount of money, and they can use that to, you know, influence politics or just do other things. Say someone like a George Soros, for instance, or Bill Gates or somebody like that. They did, you know, make enough money to retire early, but they went on to some other job that doesn't actually pay because they didn't need it anymore. So, but I do agree that
the money just turned into like power for them, and then, you know, they can have the freedom to do whatever they want.
But that's the thing. I mean, that's kind of the aristocratic idea that you get other people. You're rich enough that other people will do the menial labor for you, so you can focus on the art or whatever. And I mean, in the modern context, that just seems ridiculous. But I mean, that is in a sense like the original aristocracy. You know, just you have the serfs so that you can go and just do philosophy or art or sports or whatever.
Yes. On that note, welcome Vingul to the stream. How are you doing?
Hello, thanks. I'm doing good. Crashing the stream a bit late, just like last time. Let me know if you hear me okay, by the way, in chat as well.
You're a little bit low, I think.
Too loud?
Yes.
Okay, too low.
No, you're a bit too far away from the microphone or something, yeah.
Okay.
Leo, did you want to say something?
I don't have too much to add. I might say that I went for a walk instead of joining on the right time. I just put this on my headphones and went for a walk down to the river here, which is probably a good thing to do if you want to self-improve as well, I think. Just
touch grass, as they say.
Yeah, Chad going for a walk instead of the Virgin talking about self-improving, I guess.
Fair enough.
But just continue.
Yep.
I'll chime in.
Leo, you were about to say something, or is the moment gone?
It's gone, man. It's gone.
Okay. Before we move on, I just noticed a comment here from Julius Flavius saying that he took notes reading Harry Potter. I'm curious as to what those notes were, because looking back at it, I don't remember Harry Potter being that deep. Anyway, do we have any more comments on the angles of stuff? Oh wow, we've almost been streaming for like 50 minutes. I think we need to move on if we're gonna.
We need to self-improve here with the.
Oh god,
the
we need to
speed.
improve the time. Yeah,
it's got to be 6-hour stream, I think.
Who is doing the improving? All right, here's some links. Do you want me to bring up any of those?
So yeah, I just put the pictures there. These are some articles that I found just doing like surface level Google searches. You know, usually I don't get enough time to do some deep looks into it, but I mean, I have some pictures here. You could click on the first link because they do a sort of male-female comparison about who is buying what kind of self-improvement books.
Yep, just setting up the screen share here.
And you know, of course, this angle is like the standard shitlib, like feminist thing where they talk about, you know, it's still so like you know, misogynistic because you like it's just women reading men's books. That's what self-help is. so and you know, what it revealed is that, you know, books written by women are not read by men, but you have books that are written by men are read by women. Basically, you have this little funny graph here on Goodreads: 30 books written by women, 58 books written by men, and there you see it's kind of an and you can even look at the titles there. And
the universe doesn't give a flying fuck about you. Yeah.
I mean, you need to look at where the men.
The things you can see only when you slow down. Guidance on the path to mindfulness from a spiritual leader.
These
So
books
this
are
is like
all
Hello World.
American schlock. I mean,
Yeah.
This data is not useful.
The Little Book of Hygge, The Danish Way to Live Well. 94% female.
Your culture is commodified.
Leo, there's a market here. You can write like the Fika books of mindfulness.
Oh, no. I was about to say something rude there, but I checked myself.
I don't remember if it was Leo or Birkarl who said that it's like men are usually interested in philosophy, but if you go on the left side of this male graph there, you can see the book that is like the most read by men, least read by women, because I think it was like a philosophy book. Could you hover over that, Walrus?
Which one?
If you go
This one?
to the left, no, not the left square, but on the right square, there you go, yeah. Super Forecasting, The Art of Science and Prediction. And that's like 85% men,
Interesting.
15%
Yeah.
women. You take one to the right. And it's like
Algorithms to live by.
And this is like the super masculine books.
Yeah.
And when you get to like most female
Negotiating
books, it's
as there's only one negotiation book, and that's The Art of the Deal.
But if you look at the books by women, it's you can sort of see the type of the stuff that they write about. So if you hover over the most female book within the female block there.
This one, the top one.
This is the men's block. They have like the women's
this one.
block
Yeah,
there. The Love Warrior.
Love Warrior.
No
Unfiltered, no
regrets.
shame, no regrets, just me. I mean, if that isn't
Complete
the
psychopathy.
modern, yeah. Hashtag
Girl
girl
boss.
boss. How to be a boss. A guide of conquering life. And then you have a mind for numbers, how to excel at math and science.
Written by women, but women are not reading it.
Grit. All right.
But I mean, it is really interesting. It does kind of line up with a lot of the sort of gut feeling that you have about the male-female dynamics.
Yeah.
And like the direction, what I talked about, that direction of female self-improvement, it looks very different than male self-improvement.
Yeah.
But of course, like I said, the article is basically like the standard kind of like feminist tripe.
Nordanon says, how do straight women manage to be so gay?
It's very simple, Nordanon. They don't have standards.
They've imbibed too much Sex in the City, the gay lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
No, but I mean, I think like for the market for this stuff is basically like 40-year-old women who want to be less neurotic.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is that's their idea of self-improving, is that okay, they have a life that's kind of okay, but they have too much
either you like
neurosis and-
become like a shrill feminist whine aunt, or you start reading self-help books and get into like new age karma stuff.
Yeah, it's like I create the kind of law of attraction. The secret is that I manifested the parking spot and this kind of stuff, and like life is always working out. And I'm, like they get into that headspace where they're kind of calm and they're not, constantly on alert or concerned about what's going on. And that seems like totally alien, I guess, for a lot of men, especially in this sphere. But it is like this sort of neurosis, so this kind of like high neurosis character trait in women that I think. The only thing they want is to sort of feel more safe than they feel currently.
Who is buying these self-help books?
Morons.
Mostly from chain bookstores, online actually.
Could you zoom in a little bit? Let's see.
Oh yeah, sorry. This is like where people are buying them. So it's usually mostly online and chain bookstores.
I have no idea what is even in these books, but I recall a George Carlin joke, and obviously I can't do his delivery, but he made a point that like if you're buying a book to get help, that's not self-help. That's help. I mean,
Yeah, I think like looking at these, what we talked about on the previous slide, and now going through all kinds of self-help books, I honestly get the feeling that people who do the stuff on the previous slide and people who read these books are not the same people.
No.
Oh yeah, interesting. Yeah,
No, I
you're
agree.
probably right.
That's the difference, between action and inaction. Reading a self-help book is in action. You're just reading it, and then your life is magically going to be fixed.
Yeah, I mean,
when you come to the action part, you have already realized that you can read every fucking self-help book in the world. It ain't gonna be better. You got to do something.
I mean, if I look on my bookshelf, if I think about the first book that I see right here is a book on knots, and there's like 500 different knots in that book. Do you think I'm reading a self-help book instead of or am I developing my knot knowledge by reading about knots? Which is going to help.
I mean, isn't that some sort of self-improvement if you learn how to do all the knots? I mean, that's
what I mean. I mean, that's actual self-improvement, and not.
But I mean, that's
reading
like
a self-help book.
That's also peak male, autism is to just like dive into like I'm gonna be the knot guy,
And of course, I mean, I have multiple slides that are going through like I just look at various types of self-help literature, but you have to. I can just make the comment now that like for people in the dissident rights sphere, like most of this self-help book stuff is like too low IQ. It's like way too low IQ for them. But there is a sort of large segment of there's a big market for this stuff. Like there's a large segment of the population that are buying and reading them, and the ideas that are in them are sort of interesting to understand just on that basis. Like sort of like the kind of wine aunt that you have, or this sort of 40-year-old yoga mom that you pass on the street. What's going on in their head? What exactly are they thinking about, and how they're sort of coping with?
I recently found out that a lot of people are thinking about nothing because they don't have an internal monologue. That was my red pilling.
Yeah,
there are pictures instead, right?
Yeah.
You look at Mickey Mouse and stuff. That's like I think about the sort of with some people. I imagine they think
that Simpsons moment where there's just this monkey with the symbols in Homer's head. Yeah.
The Mickey Mouse steamboat or something that's just going on loop.
Yeah. But Walrus, the people who don't have an inner monologue, if you look through all that literature, they can't picture the monkey either. They can just think of the word monkey.
If they only knew how fast I'm rotating the cow right now. All right, let's keep going. We need to make it through this. But I think it's interesting. The main takeaway here is the demographic separation, and I think the men will take the autistic way to it, and the women will usually have the #girlboss or why not, looking for a way out.
They did read about, in one of these articles, they talked about millennials as being like a large group for self-help, and a lot of millennials look at travel as a sort of form of self-improvement, that you're
gonna go find yourself,
travel to learn stuff. But we can. Yeah. It's not that important. I just wanted to throw that in there.
I will say, maybe that's. Sure, there's got to be. We talked about Evola. There's got to be some Evola for this, but there has to be like a difference between like hiking, as in like going out into the woods and exploring, and like traveling to somewhere as a commercial product, right? There's a key difference there. That's not the same thing. Like going and finding yourself versus
It would be interesting to have if we have one of the travelers on the panel who could talk a little bit more about it, because to me that's also been a very foreign concept. I've never had this sort of
I've never seen that as like like I understand the like having new experiences and seeing new places and especially like visiting, like having the opportunity to visit like great works. And like basking in the glory of the previous civilizations for a moment, but to like sort of have some sort of personal epiphany on how your life is. I don't know. I don't get it. I guess it feels like an excuse to just like go and have sex with foreigners.
Well, I've always wondered if that's what they're doing, because that was sort of my thought on it. I assume that's sort of like the kind of Viking inside me thinking, but there's like, okay, two reasons to go abroad. It's either to do business connections or to find women, basically. Yeah. But it seems like for some of these millennials...
and in a way, that's more respectable than like finding yourself, quote unquote.
But for some of these millennials, they just kind of talk about the experience, and they want to take a picture of themselves to put on social media or something, or like
It's not for any real fulfillment. I mean, I think most of the people who go away to or take a gap year, or go to find themselves, quote unquote, they don't have a personality, and they will never have a personality either. This is more of a way to create an ersatz personality. You essentially compile a
You
number
just
of
collect
images.
experiences.
Yeah, and just have this. Look at me, I'm the cool guy who goes to India
What's that?
and
Yeah,
does
what's that?
this and all of that. But if you scrape the surface, you will realize it's nothing there. It's just that outer shell. It's just that idea of a person, but it's not a real person.
I have to
Not
say,
really.
this is probably true of me to some extent, like 10 years ago. I did go to India, by the way, but not for those reasons, however. But there is a sense that our own culture is so inauthentic that we have to leave and go to someplace else, because there is a sort of traditionalist aspect to it that the Indians have maintained their traditions, and there's also, of course, there's a lot of new age, whatchamacallit, sort of like, oh, they realize that every religion is just the same and everything, which is not true, even of Indians, of course. But it really speaks to the sense of you guys know all this stuff, the sense of degradation of Western civilization.
Yeah, I think that idea that all the religions are really the same at the same root. Comes out of the atheism plus movement. People who have read like half a book of Carl Jung's ideas and then gone to like, oh, it's all the same. No, it's not all the same. Shut up. No, not you.
Sorry.
But those kind of people. So I didn't aim that at you, Vingul. It's just like, I think we're that kind of idea. I think the idea.
I have an issue every time someone attacks. Oh, it just slipped my mind.
Jung?
No, it's related. Hang on, give me a moment.
I can just add while you're thinking.
I'm gonna find it. Yeah. Sorry, I have it. Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey, or The Man with 1,000 Faces.
Yeah.
Because that's essentially what he's doing, but it's also very lefty to attack him. So I have a hard time not defending Joseph Campbell because he borrows a lot of true things from earlier thinkers, and then he, for some reason, figures out that, well, it's all the same, and I'm gonna just like blend it all together in my blender here and make a smoothie out of it.
Yeah, I think that's the sort of inherited spirituality. So I'll just finish this point. Kind of that was inherited, I guess, from Joseph Campbell, Alan Watts, into the Boomer generation. This kind of idea of like the oneness of all religions, and there is some intellectualism there, like you talked about with some Jung and with Joseph Campbell's, and like you have some of these other more kind of pantheists, as you call them, thinkers. But ultimately, I think for like the regular person who thinks this way, it's just that they learned bad things in school, basically. I looked at some of the school curriculum for one of my local elementary schools, and the way I looked at the book on religions, and it's explained so superficially that I understand why people walk away thinking that every religion is basically the same thing, because they don't really emphasize the kind of hard differences between, say, Buddhism or Christianity or Islam and so on. So I see where that comes from. It just comes from learning basically the wrong things, probably as a part of this end of history project, this kind of globalist thinking.
Yeah, I tend to, if I may speak to my own sort of preferences, and we've touched on this before, of course, with Joseph Campbell and stuff, but I can't find it in myself to subscribe to any specific religion, either, and I think there is some truth to every religion having sort of varying parts of the sort of divine spark, if you will. But I think it's also true that you can't found or maintain a tradition on sort of this relativistic sort of thinking. And that's the problem, because we've been severed from the connection already. I mean, there are still plenty of Christians, I guess, or not plenty either. But as I say, even though I really believe that Johann Sebastian Bach was divinely inspired, I'm not a Christian myself. I can't believe in the miracles. And we don't have Norse mythology anymore either. So it sort of becomes an individualistic endeavor. If you want to, I don't go into I don't dive into spiritual matters. I'm not on a quest all the time, but
it's hard
to
read
I just want to. Sorry.
No,
the thing was that I don't watch enough Jay Dyer probably to praise this in a very good way, but there have been sort of secret societies ever since the late stage British Empire that have actively pushed this sort of what became New Age in the late 60s, 70s, 80s, this sort of universalistic religion, which in turn degrades national integrity. So it's all part of the, if you want to go along with that, sort of a one world religion, one world
right
government thing. Yeah.
Let's jump back to the topic here with the question, does working out make you right wing? And in my mind, I kind of want to change that question, because I'd much rather like to ask, does working out make you based?
Well, I think, I don't remember where this was from, but I remember some stream in faint memory where I guess it was some random shooting the shit super chat section where Charlemagne actually said he was wondering about actually autistically quantifying, how many bench press reps would you need to become, X amount right winged. Yeah. And conducting a study about this on people.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there is in a certain sense, there is a biological component to that, because you can actually see that it's in people who have, say, a very who are weak and have a very soy complexion, who actually goes into the gym sphere, and as they build testosterone and essentially build self-confidence and stuff like that, they become expressively, quote unquote right wing in their.
That's my thing though. Like, do they become like conservative Inc. right wing?
No, I don't think so. I think that the conflation here is between that everything that isn't, completely submissive and pink-haired and totally egalitarian. That's within the American context, at least, right wing.
Ah, okay,
right. But it isn't really. It's more like, okay, so these people have.
Okay, so just because you're in past, so that puts you on the right wing, basically.
Yeah, somewhat. You're not hyper commie anymore, so then you're automatically a traitor to the cause and a right winger, and you must now be disowned. And I think I saw some kind of I don't remember who. I think it was Prudentialist who shared it on Twitter or something like that. It was a study by some kind of American magazine, and the headline was that there was a problem that transsexuals, when they take a lot of testosterone to become so women to become men in their heads, they start to become aggressive and have right-wing tendencies, and this was a gargantuan problem for the trans movement.
The recruitment pool, guys. This is the base draft.
No, but it's silly, really, because it's like they on the most minute things.
Of course, yeah.
It's like, it's like the like you have in the Stone Toss comic there. Every little thing becomes a dog whistle for it's fascism. No, it's
because
just,
everything is political.
Yeah, it's just a fat frog who says good morning. Come on, guys. It's.
This is something that we get into later, but I mean, within the political compass and the kind of green square of that compass, there's no room for self-improvement there. I mean, if you look at the kind of modern, this more biolendanist left, it's almost the opposite. It seems like the worse you're off.
You're tearing down the rest of society instead. Yeah,
the better you're going to be in their hierarchy. So it's like almost anti-self-improvement. They kind of applaud you for falling apart. But in terms of becoming based, from weightlifting, I think about these high security prisons. I wonder how many of these soy people, you could say you put them 1 year in a high security prison, and how many of them would still be left wing afterwards. I think that would cure most of them, not only because they'd spend most of the time doing weightlifting, but they would be immediately segregated, and all of their identity aside from skin color would just be wiped off. There's something just inherently based about this. I mean, Joe Rogan has an interview with some guy who was in a high security prison, and he talked about, he's a white guy, right? So he talked about going in there and saying that, well, guys, I'm an anarcho-mutualist and a punk rocker and blah blah blah. So I'm not sure if I want to sit by this table. Shut up, bitch! You're just gonna sit here. You're white.
With us or you're against us. Yeah.
You're not black, so you're not gonna sit with them. And they're just they don't give a fuck if you're an anarcho-syndicalist or some kind of weird identity that you've constructed out in bourgeois society. You're just gonna be categorized into a brotherhood of people who have the same skin color, and you're gonna be lifting weights with them and engaging in tribal low IQ politics. I think that would just make them understand that kind of mindset much better.
Yeah, I was about to say that when you mentioned that he's gonna be inducted in another brotherhood as well, since it's an American prison and he's white.
But I think about this as well, with these say some of the dirtbag left, as it's called, the Chapo Trap House, and I've been listening to some of their podcasts and just paying attention to guys like Matt Christman, and it just surprises me the amount of drugs that these people take. It's it just blows my mind how these people are even alive. They're just always drunk, super high, on some kind of ecstasy, some other type of pills, uppers and downers and so on. A lot of these kind of ketamines. If you just take them out of that, if they just spend three months on a farm or something, I think that they would just have completely, metamorphosized their entire worldview. So it's not something to underestimate. It's a fun thing to point out that bicep size is correlated with political ideology, but it does seem to be there's large kind of structural things that are biological that are changing the political landscape.
So it does make you more right-wing, but only in the gay way that the Americans think. Is that?
I think it makes you more elitist.
Well, sure. Yeah.
More the idea that it's less egalitarian, and it's more I'm better than you because I'm bigger than you. And when they get that into their head, they're more self-sufficient, and they're less afraid of confrontation. Then they become more open to the idea of right-wing politics, assuming that they just vote for their own interest.
Says that I remember that tweet where some commie tweeted, "A fascist lifted today. Did you?" And lefties in his replies got mad at him. One guy said that regimental workouts are inherently fascist. But I mean, you talked about that, Luddic, the upper left green quadrant. I mean, that abhors any kind of standard.
Yeah, so they I mean, it can't go on forever, basically. That's why we need to have these based rugby teams or whatever to
Yeah.
just be ready. It's the quality over quantity.
So you talked about elitism, and we've brushed up on it a bit along the way here, but is this like you see two paths to this elitism through self-improvement? Is that it?
No, this is basically like I just try to chart out the progression here. If you start out as a normie and you have some reason to change, whether it's like your doctor told you that you're going to die unless you do something about this, you put in a New Year's resolution, or maybe you watched Rocky IV or something, and you wanted to go to the gym. So then then that ended up changing your lifestyle drastically. It goes into a type of positive feedback loop where you get motivated by exercising or you get motivated by dieting. And that's going to not just change maybe the way you look, but it will also change the way you act and your attitudes. And then, of course, you're going to change as a person. So your friends, now we're at like the bottom center square there, your friends are probably not going to like that. Like you have a certain friend group that's based on where you are. And if you make some of these radical changes and you become different, either you're going to get tired of them or they're going to get tired of you. So you're going to get this pushback. And depending on how you handle this pushback, I mean, it's happened even with myself a couple of times where sometimes I just go the route where, what's the point? Like I should just quit doing this stuff and go back to being a normie, or you can take the elite route and you're just going to separate yourself from them. Where it's a bit more of a kind of a lonely existence. But it's not necessarily just self-improvement. Like this could happen if you change your lifestyles and say veganism, for instance. Like I think this is the same progression that they go through. If like they try to be vegan and then they get some pushback, and then they either have to go and become like a vegan elitist, or they have to just kind of go back to the standard normie world.
Then they get depleted skeletal structure for their
elite. I love vegan elitists. Just they always have like horrible health.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Going through these paths, I remember the scientism suddenly about the pace at which every cell in the body gets replaced, and I think it was like something like 95% of your cells are completely new ones to those 7 years ago or something like that. And that is the time frame in which anyone can basically change themselves completely for good or ill. And these kinds of lifestyle changes, fundamentally, be it vegan or lifting or anything, even in negative directions, starting to taking the opposite route, developing drug habits or whatever, the speed at which you can completely change and alter your body,
maximizing my drug abuse. Yeah.
So it can be a long process. You can't just fuck up yourself in that short of a time. After you've built yourself up to something, it isn't that easy to slip back down again.
Yeah,
I think so. I mean, if you've spent a lot of time, that's going to be, like you said, the cells are replaced and you've created new memories in your body in terms of how things are going to work. But in the short term, I think, like, if you really want to succeed with self-improvement, you need a community. Or you need a new sort of community that you can slip into, because it's just really tough to kind of lose support structures on account of you wanting to change lifestyle.
It is hard to do it alone, that's true, yeah.
I definitely experienced this loss of support structure with that all my youth going in these team sports, and then I gained a lot of weight. I think over 60 kilograms, and coming back down from obesity, basically.
Right.
Having been an extremely fit teenager, and then at the cusp of my 20s being absolutely massive, it was easier than people who have been fat all their lives to come down for me, definitely, because running all your youth and then just having a few bad years, then coming back down is it's probably way easier.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, your body remembers how that feels to be skinny, and you can kind of imagine yourself doing that because you have the pictures and everything. But for these like perma-fat people, it's just extremely painful. So it's going to be like almost killing themselves. But some people manage it.
I want to
Then you
address
come out as an elitist on the other side because you've made it and other people haven't.
I was just thinking about the normie content bit. It may be different in your experience, but I'm not convinced that the normies will have contempt for you if you genuinely self-improve, like unless you're actually arrogant about it. I mean, the time that I don't know about contempt, but yeah, probably that as well. But when I probably ran the risk of losing a few friends and stuff was when I was really down about how things were in the world. And I would make statements like I was really probably unstable, but I mean, it's still true that Angela Merkel should be sort of redacted in public and everything. But that's like when you actually start to internalize all of that and start looking outward again is when people will accept you, I think. I mean, we live in a society where people are like posting their gains, and I don't see a lot of contempt toward that. I don't know.
I think you're onto something there, though, in the sense that most people will lash out at you more for, stopping the show than like doing self-improvement. Like if you start talking to them about, like start trying to pull them out of the matrix, quote unquote, you're going to meet more pushback and you're going to lose more friends.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't notice that you've changed anything, then I mean, everything is going to be hunky-dory, but there are certain things that are going to be, let's say you change physically, that's going to be noticeable. Let's say all of your friends are fat, and you're like the only guy who manages to lose weight, and then you suddenly have a six-pack in like 17-inch arms with
they're
veins
going
on
to
it
reject you sooner or later.
Somehow, I mean, they're going to be doing fat people stuff anyway. Like they're going to be eating unhealthy, and you can't take part in it, and so there's going to be some conflict and resentment built there. I mean, another thing, it's like, I mean, I assume I'm maybe a little bit older than most people here, but like the kind of financial stuff, because as you get into like your early 30s, there starts becoming a lot of differences between people, like financially in terms of status. And now I'm at this point where I don't tell people how much money I make, or I don't tell people about the stuff that I do monetarily, because there's you start getting a lot of weird looks because people are in very different places, and so I never understood it when I was younger why people were like really secretive about the stuff, but I understand it now. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, but it's also another thing about it that I think I've seen among people that I know tangentially and stuff like that, that the large part of why they are become so enraged that when people lift themselves out of the muck that they are in, and they try to reject that, is that because essentially it's not about the guy who managed to get out of the crab bucket. It's about them and their inability to do so, and the fact that they can't or won't rather is painful to them. So rather than facing that, because facing that is part of getting out of the problem. So rather than doing that, they reject the people who reflect their inequality. Either what do you say? They're
Project.
Yeah, no, they project the effect that they are less in a way.
Inadequate.
Yeah. I think that is a really large part of, especially why leftists are so, because they have no standards, but they inherently understand that standards is something that you should have. I mean, that's also why I think
everyone understand that.
Yeah,
it's in your bones, right?
Yeah, you can't make yourself free from them. I mean, the leftists do try, but that's also
Yeah.
element of the left's philosophy. It's the ultimate freedom from everything. It's freedom from not only politics, it's also freedom from reality, freedom from biology.
Yep.
Well, they do go into the inversion standards, of course, where you collect as many of these, as we joked earlier,
badges. Yeah.
I'm not only a woman. I'm also 1/10 Native American, and I'm fat.
Yeah, but I'm
right.
And I'm on drugs, and
Yeah, and I have 3 mental illnesses. I'm on this, on that. It becomes
and the art I draw is absolutely shit, but you have to like it because it's got people of color in it.
Yeah, stuff like it's what would Stalin have said? It has a quality all of its own.
Yeah. All right, let's keep moving to the logical end game of self-help, and we touched about this a bit earlier, where you can sort of it can tip over into the extreme and the negative if you focus too much on any self-help, if you go too autistic into it.
So there we have the Wim Hof fellow that I mentioned previously. You could run this the Hustle video because it's pretty funny for those who haven't seen it.
Do you want to see? We can do like I'm going to have to pause a lot, but there's a lot to comment on. This is a very good video.
It's a funny video. You could just pause and we can comment in the middle of it.
Yeah.
When it comes
This
up.
is from one of my favorite YouTube channels, Chris Sam on YouTube, who do, well, it's comedy stuff, I guess. And this one's called The Hustle.
6 a.m. Sunlight alarm goes on. I'm already up, high intensity interval training on the treadmill.
So he's got the sunlight trademark alarm on, but he's already up, implying that he was up before 6 a.m. Doing whatever.
So the sunlight is like this kind of circadian rhythm stuff, right? Where you don't want the sound.
Yes.
It's supposed to these people have these elaborate LED setups with like different coloring lighting where they have like red when they go to bed, and it's because
I will admit, having sort of like a sound that builds rather than like an alarm that attacks your ears is nicer to wake up to.
I agree.
But yeah, the whole like, I gotta optimize, I gotta improve my circadian rhythm.
Yeah, and another part of this is, of course, blue light blocking stuff, which we should all be having on our screens right now.
Yeah. And so he's already up. He's listening to his daily podcasts, probably telling him about how Orange Man is bad on the treadmill.
On the treadmill, catching up on my podcast. 7 a.m. Shower, AeroPress, email, but not before I read my blogs and.
What the ancient Mayas can teach you about living your best life. Nice. Also the AeroPress.
And they're
trademark.
Like doing the kind of blood sacrifice ritual there, eating the heart and everything.
Journal about creativity.
What is he saying here? Sleep retrospective. Length 5 hours. Good. Dreams need more. Could be better. Productive ? Epiphanies 0. But he's journaling about it, guys. He's doing it. He's improving. He's journaling about it. He's got stuff on lockdown. He's hustling, okay?
8:30, I'm out the door. Pop into Ground Central. They brew Stumptown. Order the pour over, wink at the barista. She doesn't notice.
Brutal. Music stops. He almost had to communicate with another human being there for a moment, but luckily we saved it.
Metro. The queue's running late, so I hop on the 7-9 and do a back around at the transfer stop on 96th and Fullerton. Shave 3 minutes off the commute.
Optimized.
I'm walking into the office when I get a notif. Insta. My favorite celeb just went live. Do I risk being late, or do I give up a chance to finally be noticed? Not a prob. Load the vid, post the perfect chat message. Right on time. Hey, boss.
I mean, I assume everyone here has worked a corporate job. Your boss does not give a shit if you're 3 minutes late.
Post your perfect chat message now.
Yeah.
You're missing out,
Sorry, what?
or you will miss out.
Yeah, right. I think maybe if we're going to psychoanalyze this a bit more, maybe that's it. He's afraid of missing out, of like saying hi to his boss and like working on his career, you know, and having the boss see him enter the office and being a good worker.
He needs to show that he has like the right mindset, you know,
Yeah,
so he can be
he has
promoted,
the hustle grind set to his boss. Yeah,
he's always early for work, even though it's not necessary.
Yep.
Office coffee, protein bar, dock the MacBook, dongle, YubiKey, I'm on. Time for stand-ups. Back to the desk. Trick is, I'm always standing.
Oh yeah, rising desks.
Gotta install the latest security patches to stay compliant with corporate policy? On it. Check the Robinhood while I'm waiting. All red. Just what I thought.
Just what I thought.
It's relatable, I can say that.
That is relatable, sadly, yeah. Oh yeah, it's going down, that's what I thought. Yeah.
11:30. News blast. Trump. I'm already on Twitter with a hot take. Then it's lunchtime. Vegan bolognese. Sit alone. No time for idle chatter.
Or no one to eat it with, maybe.
Moleskin and run.
Oh, what is he writing here? Startup ideas. Library, but for profit. Productivity app. Automatic toilets, I assume. Productivity app. I love it.
It's all sound ideas there.
Yeah.
I mean,
I have the perfect productivity app. It just tells you to put down the app and do something.
Yeah.
Positive affirmations is all I need. Next thing I know, it's 8:30 p.m.
8:30 p.m. How long has he been working then? That's 12 hours, isn't it?
I think
Did he arrive at 8:30?
Yeah.
He arrived at 7, maybe, I think.
Yeah, maybe.
Time to call it a day. Back on the 7th, this time going up 10.
Wait, hang on. Sorry, I've seen this one a lot, but does he have 2 phones? Yeah, he has 2 phones.
It's a sign that you are very sought after, you know, and very successful.
Yeah, I'm very busy with my 2 phones.
This time going up 10. Happy hour, alone. $11 gin and tonic. Another one. Feeling good. Don't talk to anyone.
I feel attacked because my favorite drink is gin and tonic.
Check the Insta. 100 likes. Not bad, but I'll have better. City Lake.
Oh yeah, boys. He got 100 likes on Insta.
He does capture the loneliness perfectly. I mean,
it's like he's smiling, but like at whom, right?
the
sad face here.
The eyes are not smiling, and he's
yeah, like here. Oh god, yeah.
Better. City lights have my circadian rhythm screwed up. Gotta head home before it gets too bad. Back in bed. One chapter of Marcus Aurelius' Meditations on the Nook. Didn't understand shit. Tweet a quote.
That's me IRL.
Same.
And of course, he complains about the circadian rhythms, but he's reading it with the blue light on, apparently.
Yeah.
I think that's just a funny detail.
I think that's like, this video is very thought out, so I think that's like on purpose as well.
Yes.
There's something here about like his battery is running out, but like he just has to get this tweet out. He can't just like charge his phone and just leave it.
He dies for the day. Perfect. Time for phase 1 of my polyphasic sleep cycle. Tomorrow's day 1 of my intermittent fasting routine. All in a day's work.
Yeah, so that's The Hustle by Sam. You should check out the other skits on that channel. There's a lot of good stuff. Some of it is very tech focused, but Elastic Formula says that I went to a tech conference in Miami and people were unironically like this guy. I've met some people who are like this as well. There are fewer of them here in Norway, almost none, but some inhabit a lot of these traits.
Yeah, I mean, I've met a few that have at least been, tested out certain things that are, going to try the 4-hour sleep cycles and sort of, the fasting stuff. I mean, at one point, I was testing out this sort of like Soylent food. I know it's like memeable, but that this it's not like soy based, but you're only eating shakes basically. Like it's just all like this kind of oatmeal like sort of compressed kind of astronaut food. So you could save time. You don't have to actually eat. You're just sitting and getting like your necessary 2,000 calories from this powder.
How do you eat steak?
Hmm?
How do you eat meat then? You put it in.
No, you don't eat. You don't eat meat. They have like protein in some sort of protein stuff inside of the powder. So there's no meat in the diet.
Eat the bug.
You eat the bug. I mean, it is ironically like eat the bug stuff, but it's sold in as a kind of like productivity self-help thing. Like you don't have to spend time eating. Basically, you can just like whip up these shakes, lose weight and save money because you're not eating. But it only works if you're like this antisocial person, like the guy in the video. So that's
Wolf's persona in this chat says that he just drinks milk straight from the carton. Absolutely based. I do it too.
Yes.
That is the way it should. You should do it. You should not have your clothes on, and it should spill over and like run down your body. That's the only way to do it.
I especially like it when the milk spills on my beard.
Yes.
And then I just leave it there, and I don't wash it.
And then I feel connected to my ancestors.
The thicker the better, right? It's whole milk is better than light, and buttermilk if I can get it.
Yeah, it depends on what. I've been looking into actually getting like raw milk, or like unpasteurized, but it's very hard to find in Norway because it's basically illegal unless you have to like basically roll up to a farmer and be like, hey, you got any milk?
Yeah, that's the only place you can get it. But I would recommend it. It's a very different thing.
I have tasted it. It's good.
I'm gonna start getting a supply of that pretty soon, I think. So I live in a rural place,
that's good.
And I know a few guys with that have cows, and I was helping them make a fence just yesterday. So. But as for now, I just drink whole cream out of the carton. Works for now.
Yeah, there's another good thing that if you have, because if you have raw milk and it goes a little bit over time, you just get yogurt.
Right.
Since you have it in the fridge and it's a controlled temperature environment. Mm-hmm. That's how you make yogurt. If you want faster yogurt, well, then you.
Birkarl, I see you sent me like a link to like a map where you can find it. I've tried it, but it's like there's nowhere near where I live. But I know of like milk farmers in the area, but it's it's not about like doing it once. It would be like the ability to set up like a supply, but that's very hard. But to get back to the point, I mean, the hustle here, the joke obviously is that this guy has optimized his life to the point where there's literally no meaning. He has no relationships. He does nothing of value really, and he's just slave to corporations.
And you have to ask yourself what's the reason I'm doing the self-help to begin with? Like you have some actual end goal. There's some win condition here to what you're doing. Instead of just keeping mindlessly trying to get better and better. That's why I put the picture of like you have Patrick Bateman in the bottom right corner there. Like you end up with this kind of like psychopathic attitude where you just have to push yourself more and more and try to make more money, sleep with more women and so on. So I don't know if you're familiar with the other guys in the picture. Does anybody know any of these other fellows?
I'm aware of the bodybuilder and the Iceman.
Yeah, and the top right is this Charisma channel on YouTube.
Perfect.
Is it Charisma?
Yeah, this is Charlie from Charisma on Command. Yeah.
Oh, really?
And like I followed them for a while, and like this guy is he's like this kind of. I mean, he looks normal. He looks totally like an okay guy. The reason I put him here is that I've paid attention to their channel, and they also made this podcast that's like this almost like this super centrist podcast where they start talking about. They talk about stuff like Jordan Peterson and the cancel culture, the kind of standard spiel that you get. But in this podcast, they start revealing details about their own lives, and that's where like the more I listen to it, the more I realize like this guy's life is like it just fucking sucks. His life sucks. Like it's just I don't have his probably don't have his abs, and I can't like do 12 languages and that kind of stuff. But like it just sounds
but
like
if you don't have any friends,
hell,
like what's
right?
the point?
No, but I mean, he's like, you know, this is a segment that they did from, you know, they were talking about, they were commenting on the video from Jordan Peterson when he was talking about, you know, dating culture and monogamy and this kind of enforced monogamy stuff. And, you know, oh, you want to be the high valued man, and then you want to choose one because you could have your way with all of these women, but that's an extremely immature. And then they just stopped the video. And it's like, and then
Frog
Charlie
here.
then Charlie is like, well, okay, okay, but that's a okay. I got to stop you there because I was with you all the way, but then you just said like having many women at the same time is childish, but that's not an argument, like just strictly speaking. And then he just started to kind of elaborate, which basically like this guy has basically like sister wives. I think he lives in Colombia and has like 10 girlfriends at the same time, and that's like, you know, the kind of harem maintenance. That's like his basic life, really. So
Imagine
you know,
having to take care of 10 women.
no, I mean, I'm exaggerating, but I didn't get an
tell
exact
me now.
number, but it's more than one. Let's just put it that way.
I mean, I would have to be like a sheik to do it, like an oil baron. Literally, because, I mean, you have to outsource it, right? I mean, you
Yeah,
like
no,
get a new woman, and then you get tired of her after a while, and you get a new one, but you still have to, you know...
Yeah, you have to delegate the leadership of the women to the first one or something.
Oh,
Yeah.
right, yeah, that makes sense.
That's why Genghis Khan always was on campaign. He had so many wives at home. So he could stay there.
Oh, no, fuck that, we gotta go for another one, boys.
Just
yeah.
find me something, anything. I can't stay here. Have you seen these women?
But yeah, it's... Sorry, Luddic. You were
no problem.
talking
I
that...
appreciate the commentary. I mean, the guy in the upper left corner, it's Rich Piana. Is no longer alive. Basically, he improved himself to death, so he got as big as he possibly
he's
could.
done steroids, I think, hasn't he?
I think so. Do you think
Yes.
so? You think
Yeah,
it's not
and I
just-
think he's
it's not
like
just
open about
creatine?
it. No, I'm sorry. Like, obviously, he looks like it, but like, seriously, he's like talking about it openly, I think.
Yes. And
Yeah.
it's not usual in those circles, but if you have a body like that, then you've done it. You know.
Yeah.
There are people who are like 1/3 as big as he is who just abuse the stuff. So. But yeah, I think that's all of them. I mean, with Wim Hof there in the bottom left corner, it's a bit of a different angle there, where he does a lot of this more, the kind of like pushing himself to do this kind of ice swimming and trying to climb mountains in his shorts and more of these types of stunts. Which is, I mean, I think it's slightly cooler. It's a little bit.
I was going to say, there's something about Wim Hof which gives me that sort of like old samurai master sort of approach, where you have just like, I am the guy who does this thing on top of the mountain sort of thing.
He has a vibe,
and you can come to me and learn, but he doesn't really, I don't know. I can't explain it.
He just teaches you more meditating.
Yeah.
Instead of, what he should be is, of course, he should be appointed the high judge of the realm, and he should pass judgment on everyone. He can be up on the mountaintop, and he can just act as this...
The Oracle of Delphi, basically, yeah.
Yeah. He's just meditating, and he just makes some, completely divinely inspired decision, when you come ask him about anything.
Thanks to modernity, I can buy his DVD for like $20.
Oh, that's great, man.
Thank you, Industrial Revolution. Very cool.
With Wim Hof, there's something like positively Faustian about him, because I think he has like world records in how long you can have your body inside like a box of ice cubes, and some of this stuff. Like he is actually
he's done some weird stuff.
Boundaries.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Where like in that weird like samurai master way, he's like the best in his field, and just sort of adopts that shamanistic role. I don't know.
Yes.
I don't have the words to describe it, I think. Okay. And then there's Patrick Bateman, which is the obviously like
I think
over
everybody
the top.
knows him, right? But then you have like I think that's kind of the logical endpoint, like for male self-improvement.
Before we move on, talking about the left-wing elitism, I didn't see this meme that Leo posted. Or was it Birkarl? One of you guys posted it.
Yeah, I posted it when we were talking about... I mentioned the inverted inverted hierarchy
Yeah.
of, self-improving negatively. And I just remembered this meme, and I
In the
posted it
future, the
immediately.
leftists will have orbiters in a literal sense. The smaller people will literally orbit the larger people.
Yeah, but like the first time I remember seeing this is from the depths of my meme folder like 1 year ago, and I found it, and I just remembered this super fat, infinite fat. I'm like
Infinite. It sounds
it's
like
just a mind expanding meme,
Oh God.
It's like it sounds like a Metal Gear Solid thing, like, oh, watch out, he's infinifat, you know.
That's more like something you would find in like Mega City 1.
I'm not very good with Japanese video games, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only Faustian thing about the left is basically a transgenderism and infinifatism.
All right. So let's cover some of our theorized pipelines from self-improvement to the red pill. So the first one is one that we have become more involved with, or I have become more involved with more recently, which is an interest in changing diet or looking at things like, hang on, are seed oils actually bad? Why do I have acid reflux all the time, right? Etc. And then getting good results on this alternative diet, and then being skeptical towards nutritional science from the mainstream. Now, obviously, I was already at the what else are they wrong about, but that is one pipeline. I'm sure there's the carnivore version and the keto version. That goes for this as well. Do any of you have any experience with this?
Well, I think you do go through all of these pipelines. You go through, say one of these. What else are they wrong about? And start on the
Then
next
you go
one.
back. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just difference when you do it. I mean, I think the seed oil disprospecting pipeline, I think I went through that when I was a kid because my father and my mother also just refused to use any kind of industrial processed fats. They were like,
Interesting.
Dad's an engineer, and my mom's works in not anymore. They're both retired now, but in any case, they were bodybuilders before they had my sister and me. So they were just, no, we eat animal fats in this family. We don't eat that fucking vegetable slop. Do you know? It was at some point where I remember I wanted that because I had eaten it somewhere, and it tastes more sweet than other things. So, and I was like 6, 7 perhaps, and then my dad just went, "No, this is how they make it," and then he just showed me from some books how they make margarine, and it was like, it's green.
Yeah, I've seen some videos. It's
yeah.
For me, I think I don't know about the diet in that sense from my home life. I think it was mostly olive oil, but I know there were some industrial oils, but not a lot, really.
Because the mainstream view, on the nutrition, especially like when I went to school, and I think this has been true for the boomers up until today, has been the food pyramid. I didn't have a picture of it here, but it basically says, it's going to be like 70% carbs or breads. So there's like a lot of paths you can take to come out as a sort of skeptic. I'm just surprised that for a lot of people, I noticed that they're able to comprehend that the mainstream was wrong on nutritional science, but they don't take it any further. They're just going to stay that in that sphere.
I know my dad had his autistic research forays into like keto stuff and looking at like the differences in corn in France and Norway and how that produces different like carbs, and how the French one are good, which is why you can eat like an authentic French baguette, but you should stay away from like bread that you can buy in the store here, etc. So
I mean, if the
There's a
Norwegian
lot of
is
things
bad,
that they were wrong about.
I thought the Norwegian was like relatively good compared to others. You know, when I was at the United States, like the bread you get in the store is
Well,
just
but
pure
everything is
cancer.
better than the United States, Luddic. I mean,
Yeah.
they literally, it's all corn and sugar.
Yeah, the food bread tastes like, like pastries. It's atrocious.
Even like strawberry jam tastes like hell in at least the common brands you get in Walmart and stuff. I guess it's actually so sweet. It doesn't taste sweet any longer. It just tastes like bitter. It's terrible. I
Yeah.
was,
This is-
by the way, I was researching keto a bit. I went keto for a while as well, and apparently the Japanese don't. Well, they ferment their soy, so it's actually not unhealthy. Apparently, the way they
I
do it
see.
in Japan, but we just inject soy into everything and expect it to.
Yeah, the fermentation process gets rid of a lot of the sugars and also the estrogen. It breaks
see.
down.
I've always wondered about that because-
they have soy boys in Japan. I don't know.
Well, fair
why they
enough.
have soy boys, but
But I've always wondered about that because you read that like soy stuff that you can buy is like, oh, it's estrogen, etc. But then they use a lot of soy in cooking in Japan, and I didn't quite manage to make that make sense. But that if they do something to it that removes a lot of it, that makes sense. So what's this, Leo? Is this like the new food pyramid? This is what it's supposed to be?
Yeah, that's the good food pyramid.
Yeah. I do agree. It makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, you can cut out the top if you want to, but you will need the veggies.
Yeah.
The human gut is evolved to eat especially roots and tubers, as well as fruits and stuff like that. So it will need some of it. I mean, AA has been talking about how everything when he's doing keto, everything tastes like porn scratchings, and that's because he
Porn scratchings?
Yeah, like
Pork.
yeah,
Pork. Oh,
yeah, like pork. And that's
Bit
why
of a slip,
and that's when the body starts to readjust.
Mhm.
It will do that for a month or so. But if you just eat a little vegetables, the thing that doesn't happen.
Hmm.
But I think
I
like this.
found sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, with this red pilled food pyramid here, like the only issue with it is that it's going to be more expensive. If you have like a standard like regular diet in your country, it's going to be like more carb heavy. Carbs are cheaper, so I mean you can get certain meats cheap, but if you want like a better variety of it, you're gonna have to pay more. You don't want to subsist on only like cheese and ground chicken. Basically, it gets like really stale really fast.
Yeah, sure. It's but it has always been that. I mean, this is the aristocratic diet, and diets historically speaking, it is the upper parts of the
Pastoral
I mean,
peoples.
even though, like, say you're like a peasant and eating a majority bread, like, say we flip this, right? You're still engaging in an amount of physical activity that's going to keep you at least somewhat healthy.
Yeah.
Compared to like an office worker today. But the office worker today eats like the peasant and then doesn't move.
I've heard that the lumberjacks of old, they they were probably like 10, 12 guys in a hut out in the forest, and they usually had one woman to cook their food. And I've heard the claim that they consumed 12,000 calories per day. So yeah, you can
That
probably
would make sense, yeah.
And I'm sure they got a lot of meat as well. But you can probably eat quite a lot of bread if you when you exercise, quote unquote, that much.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's one pipeline. The other one is the physical one. We've covered that quite extensively as well. That you engage in physical training, and you notice there's sort of a relationship between genetics, outcomes, and also sort of the mentalities, and accepting that if you put in work, you get good aesthetic results. and then you become skeptical of the tabula rasa and the social constructivism, and you end up in the end point. Start reading
I mean,
history.
you can just look at the Olympics and you just ask why all of the runners have the same skin color or something. I mean, it's quite easy to fall into this pipeline, but I mean, when you're training, you kind of live it. You just can't. It's not something abstract that you can just kind of push away in your head. It's just always there. Like, I mean, if you're competing or something and somebody else is beating you, then you think it's because like their arms are a little bit longer or they have a little bit more fast twitch muscle fiber.
Yeah, like in boxing, like your reach or your speed, or
it's a very hard reality that you have to deal with, and that makes you think differently.
The next one is obviously history. You read history books as a hobby, or maybe part of the job, or as school stuff, and then you get more interested in it as a hobby. Get a nuanced perspective on past cultures and civilizations, and then you become skeptical of Whig history. This is one that is, it seems to me, is quite heavy in the dissident right. There's a lot of history people floating around.
Yes, but there's also this containment mechanism of these huge, these battle videos on YouTube, and people may get hooked up on that. I think they had even I think one of the biggest ones is Kings and Generals or something like that, who is and Historia Civilis is another one. And these people are just openly Marxist. They don't mention it in their videos, but you follow them on Twitter or entered their Discord server once, and they're just spouting dialectical materialism and debating it, and then they make these video campaigns talking about the history of Ukraine and Ukrainian identity, and there is some effort to by the YouTube algorithm things and stuff like that to curtail this avenue, just like there are these articles talking about Jim Bros becoming right wing. These avenues are all acknowledged.
Yeah, they are, and Vingul here this is just turning into meme review. Is your child a far-right extremist? Look for these warning signs: an aversion to drugs, alcohol, pornography, interest in physical fitness, mental well-being, growing collection of classic literature, monogamy, desire to marry and procreate, increased time spent outdoors or in nature, appreciation of nation, history, and culture, a disdain for modernism or postmodernism. That's literally me.
My favorite is growing collection of classic literature.
Yeah,
it's a real warning sign there.
I mean, just in getting the very first stream I did on this channel was reading from Knut Hamsun's articles, and getting my hands on that book with a collection of his articles. That's like a sort of like a quote-unquote original printing, which it isn't because it's from like the 60s or something, but that's the only one you can find. And it's published in the mid 60s, I think, and I had to buy it like used off of like a guy who just had it, who wanted to be rid of it. But it's hard to find these things these days.
That's a very good.
There's a reason for it. Yeah. Sorry, what?
I actually didn't know that it's not in print, even in Norwegian, but that's a very good collection that I've read many times.
Yeah. No, it's no longer in print. I tried for so long to find it, and then the only version I could find was like these old used ones. Yeah.
They're collected by, let's do Hamsun's Burgery another time.
Yeah. So next one is persuasion, sales, and marketing skills into learning about auto responses and subconscious psychology. And then you become skeptical of the marketplace of ideas and informed democracy when you learn that, how easily people can be manipulated.
Or you can just watch Century of the Self. I mean,
where you can do that.
of course, I know people who work in sales, and usually they will just pick up this stuff by heart, but they don't actually become politically involved. So I don't want it to be misunderstood in the sense that people like you know, the regular sales representative is going to be like this super red pill person. That's not very likely. I don't think they're going to have a very political personality usually. At all, but there is a sort of angle here where you sort of learn the tricks of the trade and how you manufacture consent basically from people.
Yeah.
And when you know that, you just become super skeptical of these sort of highfalutin liberal ideals of how democracy is supposed to work.
I think this one is probably one that comes after one of the three previous ones. And I think, and you know, working in sales and marketing and persuasion, I think it can come just from interacting with people, random people, more generally as well, and seeing their, well, exactly these kinds of responses, like we talked earlier about this self-improvement in, you know, be it in gym, in physical training, or this collection of classical literature. And them being, you know, more interested in the recent Cape movie or stuff like that. So
You mean Morbius, the #1 movie in the universe? Have you guys seen
that's the name of the most recent one.
Yeah, I recognize the meme.
But-
I'll give
but-
you a thumbs up.
Yeah, the meme is that it's basically that people are becoming tired of it. So the meme is turning into how this movie is going to be like the greatest thing ever. Like, because people are so fatigued of Cape shit, basically.
Well, I'm glad I didn't even know this yet. So I think I may have seen something about it, but it just didn't register because it wasn't, you know, I wasn't in on the joke yet. But
Yeah,
anyway,
no,
this,
that's fine.
you know, this last one I think could come in this fashion after these others.
Yes. I mean, just to clarify on the Morbius stuff, I think that the people who are Morbius posting, they're still kind of in the coping cycle. Like they're still sort of paying attention to the stuff. I mean, if you're Birkarl or somebody with more healthy disposition, you're like completely off the reservation on that, and that's probably the best approach. But I mean, I sort of understand the kind of fatigue in it because the I think I didn't even realize it until I saw the memes, but Morbius was actually.
I didn't know about the movie until I saw the memes either.
No,
That's
I
the
saw the
only
memes
reason
and
I
I
know
didn't
about
even
it.
know about it even when I did see the memes.
But like Morbius is actually one of these kind of like side characters in Spider-Man, basically. So they're like running out of they're really like running out of material. They have to just go dig in the bottom of the barrel to find like this really obscure, weird character, and nobody gives a shit, and that's why it's funny.
Yeah. Let's keep going here on the self-improvement or red pill pipelines. So next one is engineering and hard science. We don't have an explicit pipeline here, but it comes from this a bit from this
Well,
tweet
you're
here.
gonna have to kind of explain this pipeline to
Yeah.
me because I wasn't able to make it because I don't really understand how the steps work. But
I'll explain
here-
my version of it at least, and then
Do it.
we could see if any of the panelists or the chat agree. First off, this tweet here from Jeet here says, engineering is the worst discipline and a hotbed for extremism, conspiracy theories, and crackpot ideologies and terrorism. John O'Connell says the question is why? Then he answers, it's how engineers are trained or educated, in a binary system of right answers rather than introduced into a hermeneutics of disciplinary engagement, as in other disciplines, including the sciences. Now, first of all, he might be right that engineers are trained in a system of right and wrong answers. If you go to the mathematical engineering stuff like hard computer science or engineering as in construction engineering, where there are, when you're learning it, there are literally right or wrong answers. If you do the calculation correct, you get the right answer. but engineering is also one of those fields that are so far removed from theory, like when you're actually practicing it, that it's almost not an academic practice, I'd say, because it's the difference between the builder and the architect, or the engineer and the architect. The architect is the theorizer. He's the social, the sociologist, if we're talking in metaphor. But the engineer has to actually build the thing, or deal with gravity and deal with reality and problem solve. And you don't need a humanistic for that. You need experience. You need knowledge from other engineers. You need knowledge about how the world works. So it turns it into a very sort of like realism approach. And that's why engineering for many is a hotbed for extremism, in the sense that they deal with hard truths. Now, the other side is the conspiracies and the crackpot ideologies. Now, this is obviously a blue checkmark guy on Twitter, so I'm going to assume that he's just throwing out bad words, but let's take him at face value.
But yeah, I put a link there. You could show the stream what this guy looks like. Because I think it's kind of entertaining.
This guy?
See, this we talked about this on the chat here, but Morgoth's review, he has
That's a hard L on the physiognomy there.
Morgoth's review, the channel, he has a video that's called, he has like 3 videos that's called Archetypes of the Left, and one of those videos are called The Archetype of the Abomination. That's like considered this sort of bio-Leninist kind of super individual that's like this disgusting, overweight, skin disease, weird sexual interest person who's just put in a position of position of power just to hurt people, just to be like sadistic, to be like as sadistic as possible, and to sort of make people just kind of quit the game, basically. Like, I mean, on this guy's Twitter, you see these kind of white replacement memes that we're going to replace you, and it fits exactly with the profile that he likes to trigger people. There are probably like school shooters and stuff that have been reading his stuff and become so like blackpilled that's the reason they're kind of pushed over the edge. And
Jesus,
people like him just kind of enjoy doing stuff like that. That's the kind of archetype that he falls into. But the distributists had a bit of a take on this guy, that some of this the replacement stuff that he's been talking about, like he's just going a little bit too far with it. He hasn't really gotten the memo on, okay, we're not supposed to keep doing that now. Now we're supposed to pretend like replacement isn't happening, basically. And this is a trend, like this is a bit of an aside, but this is a trend that I've noticed with some of these Brahmin, what you call like Brahmin Indians, that come to the United States to participate as sort of journalists or be in the intellectual class, is that they make a lot of effort to be as progressive, or just to be as inside of the kind of American ideology as they can, but they're just certain things that they just don't get, which means that they step outside of the bounds and they make these kind of tactical mistakes like this guy is doing. Another example would be that guy, his name is Adnan Giri-Haradadas. That's like this. He has like this large Johnny Bravo gray hairdo, Indian journalist guy who wrote a book called Winners Take All. That's basically about, look at this neoliberal stuff and all of these elites, that they only think in terms of money, and we should go back to this kind of FDR way of doing things. The thing is that the way he structures the book is that he goes through these profiles of people that end up in this kind of neoliberal machine. And they all have the same ethnic background. Like it just basically reads like a sort of like a kind of names list of like who's who of like a certain tribe, basically.
Of
and
early
like people
lifers.
actually, on Goodreads are actually sort of criticizing him, like this reads like a sort of alt-right book, because there's I just commented like this. I think it's funny that they seem to like they get the picture but not completely, and they end up making these mistakes where they accidentally just kind of push people into the dissonant right because of their
it's saying the quiet part out loud, because you're not really clear on what part is supposed to be quiet.
Yes. Perfect. But that's a bit of an aside there. Non-mainstream economics would be the last one. Like you talked about Austrian econ, which is something that I I don't know if this was a red pill. I mean, I was already interested in, revisionist history by the time I found the sort of Mises Institute.
I was going to say, there's no way you can't read people from the Mises Institute and not end up questioning what the hell is going on, right?
Yes.
I mean, if you're genuinely interested in like learning about economics, fair enough. If you disagree with Austrian economics for some reason, I don't know why, but yeah, to me, the mainstream economics one, or sorry, non-mainstream economics, is very obvious why that leads to red pill.
I mean, you have the kind of hard guys like Hans Hermann Hoppe and some of these other revisionists in there, but I guess there's also a strain in there of like a bit of this kind of liberalism in the Austrian school, where people could go a bit in a different route, like the sort of the new Libertarian Party and
oh yeah, sure,
so on, and get kind of stuck in this Molyneux utopia thinking. So it's a little bit half and half on that. I'm not totally sure about this pipeline.
I would say it's a pipeline, but it diverts. How about that?
Bifurcates.
But
yeah.
I think to me, the way I see it now is basically that they've just refused to take the final step.
Yeah, I agree.
Going a bit back to the engineering stuff, I'll add one final thing in that engineering is very much thinking outside the box at times, and that also applies. You apply the same brain and the same thinking methods to politics and social issues, and that's a very good way of getting into conspiracy theories, as well as recognizing patterns and recognizing systems. I mean, Curtis Yarvin is probably the biggest reason why he is so popular is because he has an engineering background, because he's looking at American politics from a systems perspective, and probably also why all of us programmers are listening to him, because he's talking our language.
Well, he's one of you, but essentially that's also something that happens in engineering when you become a senior engineer, is that you stop doing the route stuff and you now start to do the really you start to going into active systems. It doesn't really matter what kind of if it's software or if it's hardware. You're looking at a function, an implemented system that is supposed to produce something, and something isn't really working.
Yeah.
And then you start, well, after you have done that a couple of times, you start realizing, oh, the obvious thing is the problem is over here, because this end product doesn't work, and we are having some problems with this kind of thing. It should be this part over here, and then you start looking at that and realize, no, nothing is wrong here. And then you start going, and then after a while, you will find that there is actually like 3 different separate small problems that are creating disturbances that are promulgating through the system. And so where the actual problem is not where it originates. So essentially, it's you're working with pattern finding patterns in a moving in a moving complex environment.
You can also see the mindset of the OP here, and I agree with Luddic Path about the archetypes of the left videos that Morgoth made. But anyway, it's obvious here that even believing in truth, not necessarily even absolute truth, but just right or wrong, is apparently, I guess he would even say it's inherently fascist as well. So, yeah, because he says it's a system of right answers, like right or wrong.
Yes, and in that sense, I mean, this kind of tweet here is, if you show that to people like Sam Harris or Jordan Peterson, of course they'd sit and like disagree and say that. This is an attack on liberal values, and we need this kind of objective truth. It's the bedrock of democracy, and the yada, yada, yada. But I kind of agree with this guy. I'm just on the other side of the issue. Like, I think that the stuff that engineering thinking or the engineering discipline creates is good. What he calls conspiracy theories, that's maybe the cathedral as presented by Curtis Yarvin, like this sort of cathedral model. Like, I believe in that stuff, so I don't really. But he's sort of correct to point out that it's like it's a diverging way of thinking, that two ways of thinking that can't be reconciled, that ends up creating the problem, and that you need to dig really deeply to actually change these things. You can't just sit and do like free speech rallies or debates.
Yeah, I think if we just think of the basic idea of this dude sending the tweet, when he presses the tweet button, does the tweet come out or not? Like, this, how engineers are educated in a binary system of right answers. If we think about, we want this text to display on the screen from this profile, does it do that or not?
Zeros and ones.
Yes, I mean, does the bridge hold the cars driving over it? Will the power plant explode or deliver power in an ordinary manner? Does the electricity go into the light? I mean, this assumes so much about. I mean, it would probably need some analyzing. I'm getting the feeling that there's some sort of trying to build a system from start, rather than looking at a system and saying this thing should go in, that thing should come out, and if it doesn't happen, we need to change the system.
Yeah, I mean, it's a classic thing of living inside of a system built by Europeans over hundreds of years and degrading it with your bullshit, like holding a lecture in university about how mathematics is inherently white supremacist because reasons. It's just.
I know that stuff that's going on. I would actually like to be at one of these lectures just to see what their arguments are. I mean, because it comes off as just like so ludicrous to me that I would just be funny to sit and hear. Okay, how do they actually explain? Which to me it seemed like this is just like obviously false. It's just so obviously idiotic. So.
Yeah, but I mean, they reject reason anyway, so they don't have to be logically correct to proffer or to lay forth that thesis. Like, I mean, this is sort of going back to maybe 2017 or something, a bit old news perhaps, but you got to have the right to deliver your dissertation in some obscure Native American language, and because you know this stuff anyway.
Yeah, I see what you mean. So can we move on with the slides?
Yes, I'm back. Sorry, I had to take care of a bot, but I knighted Nordan on, so
Bot
he
patrol,
can take care of it in the future. Yeah, he's now the Gianni of the chat.
Based.
So right, this is something that I wanted to go through, like self-help books. I mean, you looked at all of from like the Girl Power to how to use algorithms in your life, but some of these self-help books that I think are like not total crap. Or at least just to look at a few of them. Does anyone of you know? Is anyone of you familiar with these?
I'm familiar with 48 Laws of Power, and as I told you, I read 33 Strategies of War by Robert Greene as well. But I haven't read all of 48 Laws of Power. I've just read excerpts.
Yes, so 48 Laws of Power, it's basically just like Machiavellianism, and it goes into a bit more of a detailed perspective on things that you can do to be more of a successful kind of Machiavellian character. And it strikes the line between like something you can use for self-help, but it's also entertaining and it's also informing at the same time. So within like this kind of self-help sphere, I think he's one of the more kind of entertaining, useful authors.
Mostly because he's very realist.
Yes.
I mean, I'm drawing from 33 Strategies of War here, so maybe the 48 Laws of Power is different, but most of his book is just quoting from history books or direct quotes from like great men.
That's exactly. He has a book on war strategy, as you say, has a book on 48 Laws of Power, he has a book on seduction. And even his book on seduction, it's not like, law of attraction. It's basically like examples from history, like historical seducers and people who were like charismatic leaders and so forth, and how they did that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably one of my favorites within this genre. Say like from the left, moving one step to the right, we have Robert Cialdini, who's written this book that's called Influence, and this follow-up book that's called Persuasion, where he goes through basically, like, it's very pedagogical, these kind of techniques that people, like advertisers, use to win people over. And this is like another one of those books where you can sort of see that the whole thing is kind of a script, in terms of how marketing is done, in terms of how political campaigning is done, and so forth. I mean, there's been some slippage, lately, where I think many people have commented on this, but that the regime is not as good at this stuff as they used to be. Like, I mean, this guy was actually, like, Robert Cialdini was brought on as a consultant for Hillary Clinton, actually, in the 2016 campaign, but they just, like, he came with some suggestions and they just threw him out again, which is interesting.
Probably because it was a racist.
So, yeah, it's just some ideas that they just didn't like, but like they brought him in as this kind of sort of fixer and a consultant on a lot of these projects. So he is like an actual PhD. It's not just like this kind of woo-woo nonsense. There's a lot of concrete examples on how you can sort of see these patterns and defend yourself against them. Here's the, stepping one more to the right, you have How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. This was released in 1936. And it's the reason I wanted to have this here, and like we talked about in the beginning, that, the current event stuff, I feel like it's all just kind of summed up if you click on the summary link that's underneath the book.
Yep, I got it.
I mean, this book is just kind of just explains in detail how to be a polite and likable person from like a 1930s perspective, and to use that to kind of elevate yourself. And like, if you can zoom in a little bit, with the amount of like infighting that's been going on in these kind of dissident right circles, and not just online, but like with the Norway Democrats lately, like just the sheer amount of shit flinging. Oh, whoops, what's this stuff?
Fuck off, Dan.
No.
I was trying to sell me something.
Read the newsletter.
Yeah. So here we have like, fundamental techniques of handling people. Don't criticize, condemn, or complain. I think that could be useful. Give honest and sincere appreciation. Arouse in others, other persons an eager want. And let's see, if you scroll down, I think there's some more about handling conflict. Let's see, be a leader, how to change people without giving offense or arouse resentment. So point one, begin with praise and honest appreciation. Call attention to people's mistakes indirectly. Talk about your own mistakes before criticizing another person. Ask questions instead of giving direct orders. Let people save face. Very important. I mean, this is just a summary, right? Say praise the slightest improvement and praise every improvement. Be hearty in your approbation and lavish in your praise. Give the other person a fine reputation to live up to. Use encouragement. Make the fault seem easy to correct, and make the other person happy about doing the things you suggest. Like, this is like the opposite world of what's actually going on in right-wing politics. Like the right-wing politics playbook to dealing with, leadership and criticism is basically to go off your medications, get drunk, film yourself screaming into the camera up, about what's going to happen when you become dictator, and then uploading. And like
that will show them.
Yeah, that will show. But I'm like, it sounds like I'm just fun here.
You shouldn't. You should not plagiarize Don here.
Well, I mean, I didn't mention any names because I've seen other people as well that are like, I'm not naming any names, but he's not the only guy doing this stuff. I've seen other people that are. That's kind of their go-to, it seems, like when there's some minor disagreements in like a Telegram thread or some stuff about
and then it like spills over, and you send your goons to like call the other guy's general an incel or something, and haunt unrelated streams, and it's just
bring people on to have struggle sessions and this kind of stuff. I mean, it's And this stuff comes in as well, like with the Norway Democrats, because they had like their national meeting And you sent this link to me, Walrus, where they talk about the stuff that went on there, the suggestions that they consider to having there, and this party has just been plagued with infighting. And I mean, you can say that that's normal for parties, but I talked to an acquaintance of mine who's like a bit more familiar with their internal community, and like they're like sort of at record levels of intrigue in terms of they've had like new laws and new interpretations of laws that have had to be put in just to handle stuff that's happened in that party. So they are probably way above average in terms of like just deliberately self-sabotage and conflict, and just the general idea of these right-wing people who don't want to spend $1,000 on t-shirts and a parasol booth, but they want to spend like $100,000 on suing each other when the party collapses or something. Like this seems to be like the MO, and the reason why one of the reasons, like if we look aside from like the big picture stuff, like the kind of immediate reasons why we can't get anything done anywhere is because there's just a total failure of giving constructive criticism or just handling internal conflict in any sort of constructive way. And that's why I think that this book is kind of useful and kind of simple as well. It's probably like below the IQ level of a sort of Keith Woods or something, but like I think they should still read it for these particular reasons.
What the one of these that really hit my eye, especially of those previous ones. Oh, you just closed it. Anyway, it was the number 4, the ask questions instead of giving direct orders. And I'm just reminded of my time as a conscript, and honestly, a lot of military movies. And what hit me first was this quote from Starship Troopers. This officer asking,
"Do you want to live
troops,
forever?
Do you want to live forever?"
Maggots, yeah.
And I'm reminded of my time in the military when we're not goofing around as grunts do, and the officer comes in and, "What's all this then? Are you gonna stay on your ass all day?" And that just struck me quite hard right now.
Oh, that's interesting.
I wanted to share this.
So the next book here is, we have quite a few slides left, so we have to to keep going.
It's I'll just try to speed run this a little bit. I mean, Nathaniel Branden, for those of you who don't know, is like one of these more prominent people in the objectivist movement. That's like the kind of Ayn Rand movement. And I think like this book, 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem, it's like everything useful from Stefan Molyneux without all the bullshit, basically. And it's no joke, because he took a lot of ideas from this guy. I mean, Nathaniel Branden is sort of notorious for having been like the sort of younger lover of Ayn Rand, but he spent his entire life basically studying the psychology of self-esteem, and then he released multiple books, but this is like his magnum opus of explaining basically how you can build self-esteem, like how you should think about self-esteem and how you should build your self-esteem up. And this book emphasizes integrity a lot more than the other ones. I mean, if you read this kind of the 48 Laws of Power and Influence and How to Win Friends, like you become a bit more of like this Machiavellian character who's very fluid and who always changes based on the situation. But the 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem, it's a little bit more confrontational. It's a bit more on just kind of like building self-esteem by staying on principle, basically, and that you need to build up respect for yourself. And if you don't respect yourself, then other people are probably not going to respect you. So it's going to encourage you to say something unpopular on occasion. I mean, there's of course some kind of like shitlib politics in there, or some sort of like libertarian politics in there, that if you're, if you don't like the girl boss, then it's because you have too low self-esteem and stuff. But it's not so much that it hurts the experience of reading it. All right, we can just keep cycling the slides. You can go to the next one.
Sorry, I'm just having an issue here. There we go.
See, here we're going into a bit of the other ones, like some of the more kind of the sort of economic degenerate new aristocracy that Leo talked about. I mean, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I don't think it's a very well written book at all, but it's very popular in those self-improvement circles, where it doesn't have anything to do with weightlifting or nutrition. It's just really about trying to. It's best read, I think, by middle-class people who want to make more money than they're currently making, who feel like they've sort of maxed out the potential they have of having like a regular 9-to-5 salary job. And if you want to look into basically how to think about investments and how to think about borrowing money to invest in stuff, then this is a good book. I mean, if you're kind of working class or if you have credit card debt, then you should not read this book. And that's the mistake that I see with a lot of people who are just total, losers who pick up this stuff and their life gets exponentially worse because they start like borrowing money to buy Bitcoin and all this sort of stuff, and they completely misunderstand the point. But he is, what is kind of red pilling about Kiyosaki is that he will talk about like the Federal Reserve and money printing, and this is really about the the kind of Ron Paul stuff. It's like, they're printing money, they're ruining the economy. But I mean, his investment strategies are basically reliant on the fact that how do you make money while they're they're printing money, they're devaluing the currency. So how do you keep the money? How do you take advantage of those systems? That's kind of the like his main contributions. So there's this kind of sneak red pilling there in some of the stuff where you can get more into kind of how the banking systems works and so
get
on.
Red pilled on the Fed, yeah.
Yes. The 4-hour work week. It's like, I mean, this guy is like, he's marketed himself really successfully, but I just do not care for any of his books. They're way too long. They don't contain enough useful information. But the whole idea about this one is that I don't even know if all these strategies are still valid, but I say like 5-10 years ago, you could go online and try to get like these virtual assistants or get someone in the Philippines to do a kind of job for you, basically, that you set up this kind of small operation where you hire people from the third world, and then you move to a third world country yourself and sell services to people in the first world. And then you have enough money to basically just manage this kind of virtual digital business. And just kind of live and do whatever hobbies you like, or just mess around in Thailand or something. And that's kind of the idea of it. I mean, it's made to sound really simple, but the thing is that if you're like this totally incompetent loser, you're not going to be able to do this stuff. You need to be kind of smooth to pull this off. And if you are like this, that's the contradiction there. If you are smart enough to pull this off, you're probably going to want to make more money. Like, I mean, you're just leaving a lot of money and opportunities on the table. So it's a very sort of appealing idea. I see it still in a lot of these ads that come up where they'll talk about, look at me, I'm in Spain or something, and I'm just chilling out because I got this passive income from some investment that I made, and you can too. I mean, if you see that, you should just run the other way. And then we have the. Let's see, moving right again, Jordan B. Peterson, 12 Rules for Life. You've read this one, Walrus.
Lobster Man, yeah.
Lobster Man.
Yes,
what do you think of this?
I maintain that Jordan Peterson, well, he didn't teach me everything. That's the wrong way of putting it. He told me everything that society forgot to tell me. Can I put it that way? As a young man growing up. But the problem, I think I was a bit too old when he came about, because I was already on that track. So reading 12 Rules of Life was a bit more like a checklist of how much of this am I aware of already. But I think that's my only take on it, really. It was huge when it came out, if I remember correctly, for a lot of the libertarians online, or I suppose the people who were fans of what are they called? The Jordan Peterson and all of his friends.
the intellectual
super
dark web?
group, the intellectual dark web, yes. Yeah. I think it was huge in those circles, and there's certainly a lot of wisdom in it. But looking at it with the other self-help books here, it sort of devalues the value I had put on that book, if you know what I'm saying. Like looking back now, it like feels like, oh, that was just another self-help book, was it?
Jordan Peterson exists in a kind of twilight zone between self-help and spirituality and, pop psychology. I mean, he is more of like this kind of synthesizer, I think. I mean, for me, this book was just I didn't like it at all. I can tell you the reasons. Like one of the reasons is that he basically explains, I think, in the sort of preface to the book, that this was actually, this book was actually just supposed to be a post on the website Quora. Are you familiar with that? Like these kind of questions and answers
I remember
thing.
that.
So the book is written in a style that is very typical for like this particular website. And I was at a point where I was just I had been reading some stuff on that website, and I was already kind of becoming aware of the patterns of how people would kind of optimize their answers to get more upvotes and traction and try to market stuff. And I see the same things in his book. And that was just so fucking annoying for me to see like that he has, he uses emojis in the book. Like he has like a smiley face, I think, at one point. I've never seen anything like that.
He had a smiley face. I don't remember that, but
the ranty style that he has, where he just it's probably the least helpful.
That's something I would say as a criticism to that book, is that it's very ranty, as you said. It's
it could have been like a booklet or something, like a pamphlet, with, really quickly getting to the point.
Yes.
But he starts talking about, you need to stand up straight because of the lobster physiognomy and World War II. And it's like he goes through all of the Jordan Peterson greatest hits, basically. Like, I don't know how he manages to do it. Like his mind must be like really, it's different from mine. It just goes through, he has to sort of loop through all of these. But
that's also what I was saying. Like it felt like, it's like if you've been reading a lot of Curtis Yarvin and then you go watch Curtis Yarvin interviews. They're not that interesting because he's just taking you through his theme park. And that's what 12 Rules of Life were for me, because I had already sort of, before it became huge, I had already pretty much devoured every single lecture he did on YouTube while I was like studying or something, right? And when this came out, I had sort of like moved past it, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Once I read it, I felt like, and once I read it, it felt like, well, yeah, but this is just the same stuff I've been listening to for 2 years now. I'm sort of beyond this, I'm listening to new hip stuff now. There's this academic agent guy on YouTube that I really like listening to now, right? Something like that.
But I mean, I feel like this was his cash-in project. He had to make money somehow. He built up all these fans.
Sure.
This is how you cash out. I mean, I'd gotten a lot of free value in terms of the lectures. I mean, it was all for free. So I mean, you buy the book and then.
But I mean, the university paid him for that. So
yeah. Okay, so let's see we could just skip the subtle art of not giving a fuck, because that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Let's see. Meditations, Marcus Aurelius. Like this is it's pretty fascinating that this has become like a self-help thing. I got this from a coworker, actually, who was on this kind of self-help run, and he bought it for me and some other coworkers as this kind of gift. And I read through it, but it has a lot of interesting stuff about his life and his views on things. The problem is that I don't remember that much. Have you read this one?
I have not read it.
Anyone
I have it on my list.
I've actually listened to the audiobook narrated by one Carl Benjamin on YouTube.
Oh.
And recently I
narrated it.
Yes, on Ancient Recitations is
okay.
Recitations, sorry.
I might listen to that.
Actually, I gifted a copy of this to my little brother last Christmas.
Cool.
So I didn't keep a physical copy for myself, but I did listen to Sargon narrate it into my ear.
I have to admit, I did start reading it last summer, but for some reason I just, I guess I started reading on something else instead, but should get back to it.
Yeah, well, I've read some of it, but I think it's well quoted Stoa, more or less. So if you want to go deeper into Stoicism as a philosophy, he's probably not the guy to read. Then you should
that's
probably.
a bit of my issue with it is that it's supposed to be like this kind of short introduction, but like in that Hustle video, he says that I didn't understand shit. That it can be slightly impenetrable for like a modern brain.
Yeah, I think you should really look into the core philosophy first, because this is like it's like reading someone who incessantly quotes obscure Nietzschean texts in his something, say an essay or something, and you don't know shit about Nietzsche. You're not gonna understand anything, really, because
that's been my problem with the philosophy all along, because I felt I was sort of too late to the game, and I don't know where to begin. I think I might begin with a book I have by Hans-Georg Gadamer, who sort of summarizes a few of the most important philosophers. But I was thinking maybe Meditations is a good place.
I will say I'm not quite finished with it, but the book, The Populist Delusion is a very good book if you want sort of like a highlight run through of like the Italian elite theorists. It's basically that's what the book is. So it's a good like starting point if you want to dive deeper into elite theory.
Yeah, but I was thinking about Aurelius because it's actually not meant for publication, so it's more of a personal sort of a diary sort of thing. So I don't think it's all that beholden to. I mean, I only started to read it, but I don't think he makes reference to a lot of other philosophers. I'm not sure.
Interesting. So the power of now.
Yes, these two, it's like I put that and The Secret sort of close to each other, even though the power of now, it's a lot. I mean, I remember reading it, I just don't remember that much from it, but it just tries to present the ideas of the Eckhart Tolle character. And now we're getting into more of these, like the kind of female side of self-help with these books, like from The Power of Now until we reach the right corner. Let's see. I mean, the only idea that's kind of presented here, it's like really, okay, you need to kind of stop, calm down the mind. It's like this very Zen Buddhism type idea where you're always kind of living inside of your own head, and like you're in the future, you're thinking about your past, and you need to kind of recenter yourself, and how to like you always have to just kind of be focused on the present moment. And I mean, you could find a lot of these lectures by these sort of gurus, quote unquote, like Eckhart Tolle or Abraham Hicks on YouTube, where they'll just have people, these huge crowds of people that just show up to them, and they will ask them questions, and they always bring the answer back to the same like 2 or 3 points that they have, and the audience is like, wow, so that's amazing, I mean, but
Unlock your mind.
It's quite fascinating to watch, just as a kind of psychological thing.
It's trucks, man.
But it's sort of like I think that it comes back to the point of like people just being kind of neurotic, and they have the idea of self-help, that they just need to be like less neurotic. They don't want to think about everything that's going to go wrong. So and that's kind of an okay thing in and of itself. Then if you take one step to the right here, you get to The Secret, basically, with by author Rhonda Bryan, and this has like been memed in certain communities to death. Basically, it's been made fun of, and kind of rightfully so, because this is not presented as a kind of, okay, all of this fancy language is just a metaphor for being present in the moment. It's just a metaphor for the relationship between like perception and the real world, and how you need to kind of change your perception to change your experience. Like it literally tries to claim that, you have the idea of the law of attraction that kind of governs the world, and that you kind of send out, signals that this kind of world that we live in, it's not the true representation of it. That there's like
It's
this
like
kind
this
of underlying
weird like Templar order coding he puts on it as well. It's very strange. I haven't read all of it, but I've been exposed to it.
It's not much to read. It's actually, I mean, you can just watch the movie that's called The Secret, because the book is just kind of a explanation of what's in the movie, where they will just tell you that, you know, oh well, you're like an energetic electrical being, and you have an energy frequency, and like with that energy frequency, you're sending out signals through the universe, and the universe will pick up on your signals, and the universe kind of answers. So if you didn't find a parking spot, last week when you were driving to work, it's because you were sending out the wrong frequencies to the universe. But if you can readjust yourself to like send out the correct frequencies, then your life is going to line up to you. And like you listen to this stuff and you wonder like how metaphorical it is. And the amount of ridicule that I throw at it is really proportional to how serious they are about it, which seems to vary with a lot of people who are into this type of thinking. That a lot of them seem to think that they can age in reverse and they can just kind of levitate. And if they just, if you just think the right way, you can basically defy the laws of physics, instead of just thinking that, okay, I can just kind of alter my perception a little bit to live better. Yeah, it is like this kind of wizard. I will come back to it, but I like to think of it as like self-help solipsism. If you're familiar with that philosophical concept, that you basically think that you're you think you can't really prove philosophically that anything else exists but your own experience, because you can experience yourself directly. But I can't prove that, say Leo or Birkarl, I can't prove that they actually have thoughts the way I do. I can just assume that, or I can assume that they're like these quote unquote philosophical zombies that that they look like they have thoughts, but actually there's it's just NPC blank. And
we are fed bots.
They're actually fed bots or something but this the secret people, they take this even further, that the people that I'm in the stream with, they're kind of figments of my imagination. I've just kind of created a reality based on my vibrational frequency, and that's why you kind of exist in the way that you do. And if I change that, then either maybe you stop existing, or reality basically changes based on my the way that I think, or how I align my kind of desires with the universe and so on. And I mean, two people in our spheres, this is it's so far outside of how people think, but there is kind of,
well, hang on, because we talked a bit about that, and now that you're saying it, it sounds very a bit like will to power stuff.
Yes,
where,
that's the kind of weird
drive it through, people will follow kind of ideas.
That's the kind of weird turnaround there, because ultimately these people have to be centrists, in a sense. You have to accept Donald Trump if you think this way, right? Because the reason Donald Trump
he's the stronger electrical being who has manifested you into his
exactly.
world.
Because this is when I was listening to one of these lectures where they were asked about, well, what about Trump, blah blah blah, and she just explained that. Trump knows how to manifest these kind of. He knows how to align his chakras better than
this
you.
This is
basically.
the Trump world.
Yes.
Trump, and magician.
Yeah.
But I mean, the quote unquote, more based part of this is that. I mean, when you look at starving kids in Africa, you basically believe that that's the reason they are that way, is because they haven't aligned their desires with the world properly. And I mean, then it becomes it's basically Hinduism now.
They just don't want the food. They don't want it.
They don't want it bad enough, right? They need to kind of align their experience properly, and the food will come. So it's the abundance mindset. It's not a zero-sum game. You want to think that everybody can have more. So I'll get a little bit back to this in the next slide. I just wanted to finish on the 5 love languages.
Herlock Sholm says that it's the secret behind meme magic. But, hey, you might be right,
Yeah.
Yeah, in a sense it is. I mean, it's a bit of a tangent that we can go into, but a meme complex is essentially just that. It's an idea, an idea that transmits and it lives in your mind rent-free.
Well, we have 4 more slides or something, so we have to push forward here.
Yeah, don't worry. We don't need to go into detail. I didn't expect us to have as much discussion as we did, so I assumed that it would just be me or something.
We're having
on the
too much
walrus.
fun here.
We're having too much fun, so we can skip through them a little bit quicker. But I mean, the 5 love languages, like this is like, for me, it seems like it would be one of the most popular female self-help books.
I mean, the only way I have been exposed to what the term love language is through women who are like, oh, my love language is touch,
yes.
or my language is X, and I'm like, what the hell is a love language?
No, they basically, it's just like trying to, it's like this kind of empathy book where you try to understand that other people will show love and caring in different ways. So it's divided into either like words of affirmation, quality time, physical touch, acts of service, or gifts. So instead of thinking that somebody is like they're not empathetic to you because they're not affirming you or they don't give you compliments, then you should look for something else. Like maybe they will do something for you, or maybe they will give you something, and you try to sort of understand how people show appreciation basically through these different love languages.
I've also heard of this through women, and my stock answer is always serve me.
Yes. I usually answer like the time stuff. I always feel like if I get time out of people's day, that's kind of that's what I appreciate. I've always been this kind of stickler for that stuff, where it's like, oh, I'm wasting my time, or it's if time is not being used productively, then I see that as kind of like an insult. And I realize that's a sort of weird thing that's not universal for everyone. But yeah, I'm sort of
kind of agree with you, Luddic. I see time as, I don't know where I have this from. This has to be from somewhere, but I see time is the one thing people can give you that they can't get back, right? So if they give you your time, then that's valuable.
Speaking
of time, sorry. Speaking of time, we have to move on.
We'll move on, so we can just laugh at this meme that I made here. I think I've sort of explained. The only point to repeat here is that the green quadrant, there's basically no room for self-improvement. I just put like these books like How to Be an Anti-Racist, or what's the White Fragility or something. That's the kind of self-help, the anti-racist baby. That has to belong in the green quadrant because they can't really fit anything else. There's and like you have these kind of ascended books.
They can fit plenty of food down their gullets and become infinifat.
Infinifats, yeah. And then they can just like they can oh, I'm knocking over my beer glass here. Absorb all of the other ideologies into their orbit, and then over millennia they become the one entity, the abomination.
That's the idea. They inhabit the two-dimensional plane, then they have to devour all the others, so they accrue enough mass, so they can
become three-dimensional.
Upwards.
Jesus Christ. But then, of course, you have the secret as the ascended centrist.
Which it is. I did, when I explained a little bit around it, why this is like this. It is basically kind of ascended centrism. You can't. It basically, like, if you meditate on this long enough, it becomes like just standard Hinduism, which I consider to be like almost the furthest right that you can be, because you get into this kind of like karmic idea that it's really, if somebody is somewhere in the world, it's because of karma, and they have to resolve that karma themselves, and that's going to, and there's no reason for you like trying to help other people, like you're trying to feed the poor or trying to bring democracy to a country, because they're just kind of living out their karma, and if you interfere with that, you ruin their kind of there we have Dr. Manhattan.
That's the secret enjoyer sitting there. Yes.
Yeah, then they cannot suffer for their previous sins, and then they cannot escape their karmic fate.
That's exactly it, and that becomes almost like the divine right of kings. I mean, the people who are in power basically deserve to be in power, because that's the universe is always in balance. Basically, there's no imbalance. So I mean, okay, I've already explained this stuff. I don't want to
All right, we want to just
the
skip.
solipsism thing. I just wanted to make more fun of it, but we're a little bit short on
Okay.
time.
Oops, sorry.
But like with this stuff here, I just wanted to go through the rogues gallery of these, of some of these self-help people. So we have Uncle Jordan there in the bottom right, but like you mentioned Gary Vaynerchuk, Walrus, that you've sort of been a little bit familiar with him.
Well, only because I've been exposed to him through like social media, because he's like everywhere.
Yes.
But he seems, I mean, it's annoying because if you spend like a minute listening to what he's saying, a lot of that is good advice for young men, but it is very commodified, very materialistic, and I feel like it's containment, really. It like drives young male spiritual virility into, you know, the modernity machine, and it grinds them to dust, basically.
It is the unironic kind of Sigma male grind set. You know, that meme comes from guys like him.
It comes from guys like him. Yeah, that's where all the memes comes from. Like, this guy is the guy who's gonna tell you that you need to get up at 3 a.m. and shit in the shower to save time. I don't have anything more to say, really.
Let's say like some of these other guys, you know, we have the guy that's actually on the thumbnail that's in the top middle here, Tony Robbins, which I haven't spoken too much about, but he's just like this kind of massive giant man who runs around doing these motivational seminars. The interesting part about it is like the kind of the amount of idol worship and the sort of fanfare that goes into this stuff, where like, I mean, we talked about the logical endpoint of self-help, where it seems like for some people, they just want to be a part of this kind of community where they idol worship some of these people. I mean, including Jordan Peterson. You know, a lot of these people just seem to...
Wouldn't you say that's what a lot of men want?
Well, yes, they're
like, really?
they're looking for a Männerbund. But they're only finding, you know,
Grifters.
Sham captains, as they say.
Yep.
Let's see, I mean, we have Deepak Chopra that's in the bottom left there. I mean, he's just kind of known as the guy, you know, jargon king, the just mixing quantum physics into everything. I mean, you can look at the kind of Deepak Chopra quote generator, and I mean, the funny thing is that he's like one of the most well-paid people in this sphere. That's the interesting part, is like how much money some of these people have made, because this is like a huge industry and it seems to just be growing. The people just lack meaning in other areas of their lives. They can't get this stuff in church. They can't get it in families and organizations. So it's become like this almost this outsourced arm of the economy that just exists to tap into that instinct that people have for meaning.
Yeah, like, C.S. Lewis had a good quote on this one. What was it? Yes, where men are forbidden to honor a king, they will honor millionaires, athletes, or film stars instead. Even famous prostitutes or gangsters. For spiritual nature, like bodily nature, will be served. Deny it food, and it will gobble poison. End quote.
Yeah,
Perfect.
very good.
Very good.
This is the exact, so get up, eat breakfast, protein. Take a shit.
Take shit, get out of bed.
Yeah.
Nordanon is on the Sigma grind set.
No, it's good. It's Sumer self-improvement. So I put Paul McKenna in here as well. I mean, he's more of like a hypnotherapist, performance guy. That's another topic we could get into. That's a completely sort of separate thing, but don't really have the time. I mean, you know, there are, if you go to the next slide there, so this is what we could end on here, because like, I mean, there's just this rogues gallery of these people that you could find on YouTube, and this is just like a small sample of them, that they all seem to have their own little niche within the self-help community, where they try to kind of stand out with some weird quirk or some kind of gimmick there. I mean, you know, Goggins is a pretty memeable guy. I mean, you know, like with the Nordanon comment that you came up, he's like probably
the
one
second
of the
guy
more...
from the left, is it?
Yeah, the guy is like, yeah, oh yeah, I just run 5 marathons every day. I just keep running, man. Yeah, I do pull-ups until my hands are destroyed, and he literally does that as well. Like, he does these sort of extreme endurance runs. he doesn't do much else. But I mean, he used to be, I guess, fat. So it's interesting. I mean, he sort of pushed the boundaries on a lot of stuff, but it's completely like ridiculous. No normal person, no sane person is going to do this stuff, like destroy your own body just to prove that you're a badass or something. He's become more of like a, what do you call it? Like this kind of celebrity, like this niche fascination,
I guess. Yeah.
And not something I think people should actually try to emulate, because the stuff that he's doing is just pure insanity. It's just bordering on like it would be funny if he wasn't actually doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, the same with the guy to the right there, the Joko Willenick or whatever, this kind of military dude. Like, there's a lot of memes about him where it's like this, yeah, I get out of bed and I shit in the bed to save time. I throw the diaper at my wife and then I go run on the beach or whatever.
Yeah.
It's I have trouble just taking it seriously. I guess it's because I'm European. If I was American, it would be easier to.
Yeah,
maybe
it's an American
into some
thing.
of the theatrics.
Yeah.
But both of these two on the left there are these kind of like ex-military motivational guys. So to the right of them, you have like the mergers and acquisitions grift crew. Are you familiar with like the guy, like that's the third from the right there on the top, the oldest
no.
guy? No, that's Dan Pena, and I mean, you should look up his motivational seminars and stuff like that, because he's like, I don't know if you want to look at the stuff that he's doing as a kind of like art comedy bits, but it's actually not. He has a lot of people who's gone to his seminars who are actually rich, but his seminars is like Gunnery Sergeant Hartman from Full Metal Jacket, like times 10, basically. Where it's like he just screams at people. He just tells them to kill themselves, and like all kinds of insults, bordering like racial stuff. Like he has like pictures of the mustache man on the wall, and I mean it's just fun. Like, you just say, your parents should be shot. Like, you should have fucking, you should just go kill yourself if you don't want to do this. And so like the guy to the right of him there is the Brian Rose, who's like one of these other people who's been under the tutelage of Dan Pena, who's also this podcast motivational grift king. He tried to run for mayor of London, made money off donations. I mean, he's just, he's doing YouTube interviews as well with these. So, I mean, if you, let's say you look at some videos from one of these guys, you're going to find, you're just going to be thrown into this kind of feedback loop where you find other like similar stuff. Let's see. Are you familiar with him? Like Brian Rose, the guy on the far right top there?
I'm trying to think, but no. Are any of you guys familiar with these guys?
I remember a stream that who were the Brits that did? I think it was AA, and he has like some Brits on, and they were reviewing the London mayoral race. In the classic.
Yeah.
Classic fashion, and this guy came on, and he was, basically an American running for London mayor.
Huh.
But he's like half British and has British citizenship or something. The main thing they reviewed one of his campaign videos, I think, and I thought the face looked familiar. But the main thing I was piqued by is this striped suit. Is there some subliminal messaging going on here?
No, it's just like this copycat idol worship stuff. They
all right.
like they all kind of like worship that guy, with the older guy with the striped suit. So most of the just quote unquote students that he's had, they dress the exact same way. They have the exact kind of mannerisms. I mean, to kind of short, primer on Brian Rose, he's like this American guy who went to be a stockbroker and almost died of a heroin overdose. And then he figured out he was going to do podcasting. After that, he met up with this old guy, right? The Dan Pena guy, and decided that no, he wasn't pushing himself hard enough. He needed to be like a billionaire again. So he tried to, turn his podcast into this kind of business accelerator grift. And when he got too many requests for like money back, then he went into politics and just, told everybody to fuck off. And and that didn't work out. So I'm not sure what he's doing currently. Let's see if we go to the bottom row there. Tim Ferriss on the left. I mean, I've already commented on him. He's the the Tools of Power, the Tools of the Titans. 4-hour work week. Not super interesting. I mean, he has certain like transhumanist tendencies as well with some of these videos, like experimenting with microchips under the skin and stuff. So, but just not a very interesting guy in my view. Jordan Belfort to the right. This is like the Wolf of Wall Street, the guy that the movie is based on. This is actually him, and he's of course a little bit more Semitic than they let on in the in the actual movie, of course. But like he's gone into more of this kind of influencer sales grift stuff, where you can find
I've
on
seen
YouTube.
him popping up as well on various social media for a bit.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not too much to say on him, but I don't spend any money on anything. I mean, if the people who are doing that, I mean, you obviously didn't watch the movie. I think it's pretty amazing to see that people actually watch that movie and like,
whoa, it's the Wolf of Wall Street. I'm gonna give him my money.
I'm gonna give this guy my money, but no, that's just kind of how the psychology works. So
Americans, man. Okay.
Typical.
And then there's I recognize obviously the last guy from the way back when. I guess I've seen him pop up on like social media from time to time as well, and he just like drives cars around and talks about how you gotta make money or something.
You mean Ty Lopez?
Ty Lopez, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I skipped one. Yeah.
Do you recognize the guy that's like before him? To the right of Jordan Belfort?
I do not.
Because you mentioned that you were familiar with some of these like pickup artist communities.
Yeah.
And you read the game.
No, I said I wasn't very, but I was. I read the game, yes, but I'm not. I wouldn't say I was familiar.
That's Tyler Durden, right?
Oh, from the game.
Yes,
okay.
From the game. That's him. Yeah.
Oh shit.
And like he is still grifting on YouTube, basically. I mean, if you read the game, you realize that it was written by this guy Neil Strauss, who tried to create this kind of self-improvement, dating advice company called Social Dynamics. And then this guy just kind of came in from the periphery and stole all of the content and created his own company that's called Real Social Dynamics. So he goes by the name like RDS Tyler. That's, I don't know his actual name, but he runs the company like Real Social Dynamics, where he kind of just came in as a kind of pariah on the pickup artist community. He stole all of the ideas, and now he's kind of running this he's still running this kind of pickup artist self-help channel. See, the one thing that actually struck me when I was looking at some of his videos is how similar he is to Vosh, actually, in his psychology.
Right.
Almost just like eerily similar, where he is like this kind of halfway functioning, almost completely psychopathic person, where it's just that it's missing something, but they have a kind of Machiavellian psychopathic psychology where they can just steal somebody else's stuff and then just do it better than them, and they don't have any problems dealing with that psychologically. So the parallel then is between like this guy stole everything from Neil Strauss and then created a similar company. It became bigger than the Strauss company, and then he just throws shit at Neil Strauss. So this is like Vosh and Destiny, basically, right? Because like Vosh just comes into this sphere and just steals like the Destiny kind of debate YouTube streamer stuff, and he gets like almost more subscribers than he just throws, kicks shit back down. And they look almost a little bit similar. I think they just have like some of this some genetic thing where they just have like this kind of personality that's suited to be in these hyper toxic environments where they can actually thrive in the sewer, so to speak. And so that's all I thought was interesting about him. I mean, I wonder if like the pickup artist community has gone anywhere like since like last 5-10 years.
The only exposure I've had to that is like whenever Red Hawk gets on a stream I'm listening to, and from what I hear there, I mean it's the same stuff it's always been, isn't it?
Yeah. But I mean,
it's not that I necessarily disagree with the analysis. It's just like, all right, and then what?
But I think like
what are you going to do about
Me
it?
Too stuff and some of the like you've had the Me Too and you've had the lockdowns. I mean, what are these people even selling? You can't even leave your house. I don't know
fair
who
enough.
your,
The past 2 years must have been rough for the PUA guys. Yeah.
so they got to go to Ukraine or something, and then they had to leave Ukraine.
Yeah, but now
for some
all
other
the
reasons.
Ukrainian women are coming to like the Polish cities so they can pick them up there.
How to pick up a refugee. That's a new course.
Ooh, yeah.
Refugee PUA. You just
Hey,
you go,
it's
you
no
go to
joke
the
though. I
office.
mean, people were memeing about like, you know, Ukrainian women like popping up on like Polish Tinder and stuff. So
Right.
yeah,
Well, I think we went through
I think that
actually.
concludes it. I mean, we had to speedrun some of it, but I think it was a lot of fun. Any
Yes.
memes to share before we sign off for the evening, guys?
No, all my
We
memes are too.
depleted.
You will get.
We can't show them. Yeah. If there's any questions from chat, we will be open to taking anything. If not, we'll just, as usual, just sign off. But we'll give it a moment to catch up. We were talking a bit about the Norwegian Democrats scuffle, and the reason there's been a scuffle recently, I mean, it's been going on for like at least a month, but the recent one was that there was a proposal to for the party to define itself explicitly as anti-racist, and that was shot down, which I find interesting in terms of there's forces within that want to sort of play with the bigger parties, and to do that they have to, you know, declare their yes. But it seems like the majority does not want to do it. Nordan wants us to do a meme review stream. I would have to collect memes for quite a while then, I think. We'll see.
In terms of the sort of racist, anti-racist question, I don't know, like if you were familiar with the politician in the Norwegian Democrats who brought that forward. But I mean, it's just, I understand the optics angle, but it's just kind of political suicide, because if you're going to commit to on paper to say that you're anti-racist, it just basically means that the Center for Anti-Racism is just basically running your party. You know, if anything's going to come up where it needs to be decided in court, you know, if what they're doing is racist or not, then it's going to be the Center of Anti-Racism that basically decides that. So
yeah, it's not
you're just
them.
giving them control of the party platform.
Yeah.
I posted a link
Julius.
in the chat there with a photo. I thought we could show that as a kind of
oh yeah,
kind of meme, because I don't know if
Yeah,
people were aware of this.
I'll open it. Julius Flavius says, which one of us have delved into magic? Not the trick type of stage magicians, but the Gotia type, etc. The only closest thing I have to that is I have a book. I have the Introductions to Magic book from Julius Eveles sitting on my shelf, and I am afraid of touching it. It's a lot easier to read other philosophers than diving into the weird esotericism of Evola. So I can't brag that I have. Sorry.
Yeah, I have this book called Introduction to Hermeneutics or something, or to Hermetics. Sorry, Introduction to Hermetics. But I never got to reading it. So let's see here. This is the election booth there. I think from 2017 from the Democrats, the Norway Democrats. So like it was not a joke when I said that they're like a party that are not willing to spend $1,000 on like a parasol and some chairs and some
It's
t-shirts.
not even that much, but yeah, like just basic marketing paraphernalia.
Yeah, they put up some particle boards and used like a spray can basically and put a little Norwegian flag with some duct tape. And this is standing next to like professional booth from Labour and Conservative and all these other things in Oslo. I mean, so this is kind of the level that we are at in terms of organized, you know, resistance to the regime in Norway, like trying to have like a nationalist party.
Sorry.
I mean,
No, it's sad. It is. It really is.
Yeah.
I think the Sweden Democrats are a little bit ahead of us there.
Yeah, but they're gay and cringe in other ways. So
Yep. I mean, we could do.
I'll
We
have
could
to
do a
make. You know
stream.
what? This is a we can do a meme stream, but you guys who are listening, you have to join the Matrix channel. We have a meme channel there, and post them there, and over time I'll collect them, and then we'll do a meme review. So in the description there should be a link to the Matrix. It's element.shieldings.com and something else. Click that, and you'll be able to join the room. If I could recommend only one book by Avila, which one would it be?
The bow and the
I mean,
club,
obviously it would be Revolt, but I would also not recommend anyone starting with Revolt. I did, and it's quite hard because it's almost like his magnum opus in the sense that it's his entire philosophy in one book, more or less. So it can be a bit hard to sort of like jump in feet first.
the bow and the club. That's like his essay collection. I think that's the easiest one to start with.
That's the easiest one to start with. I would agree, but that's also just like an essay collection, so it's not very coherent, quote unquote, in that sense. It's not, it doesn't flow.
I've only read what's it called, Meditations on the Peaks, which is also an essay collection. It's I heard you mention the mountain climbing as a spiritual quest aspect earlier, and yeah, I recall it as quite good, but it's been 10 years since I read it. So
Julius Flavius says that Handbook for Right-Wing Youth is very easy to grasp too. I agree. But then again, it's as he also says, obviously, if it's just one book, it's got to be Revolt Against the Modern World.
Yeah.
Read that.
I would say that an interesting book, well, rather it's two books, but they are really one book, and that would be Fascism Viewed from the Right and Notes on the Third Reich. I would say those are a really good read.
But I think they require you to understand his philosophy a bit more.
Yeah, probably.
I would argue. Like going in cold into those. Well, I mean, if you're already a hardcore dissident writer, you should have enough sort of like osmosis knowledge to be able to read it, I think, without any problems. But I'm just thinking if someone like discovers Julius Avila for the first time and the first thing they jump into is fascism read from the right, they're rude awakening.
The first thing that always should be read is Orientations. The Julius Avala's, what is it? Handbook for Right-Wing Youth.
Yep.
If you have no idea what it's all about and you're not used to reading philosophy, then it's probably the way to go.
All right. Well, I think it's time to end it. We're like 15 minutes over our usual time. Thank you everyone for joining here on the panel. Is there anything you would like to shill before we end?
Nah, I'm good.
I just uploaded a selection of music by Bach. So subscribe and listen to the 2.5 hours I selected. And it also contains the Ascension Oratorio. Was first played in 1735, I think. But today is, after all, Ascension Day still. So yeah, check that out if you're into Baroque music or want to get into it.
Very good. Luddic, any memes?
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten the community tab enabled, so I'm just posting one meme a day currently, and it's going to be one video per week. It's just a schedule. I don't feel the need to chill. It seems like YouTube is throwing me on the algorithm somehow.
Yeah, it's the meme posting, I think.
Yeah, I've been quite blessed. I got like monetized 2 days ago. Actually, I don't know how to make money off these memes, but I'll find some way.
Jesus. All right. Birkarl.
Just today, I uploaded a what do you call it? Well, during the whole winter and the spring, I made some Instagram stories where I snippet by snippet sang through the first poem of the Kalevala, and I collated those and uploaded it onto Odyssey. The quality is pretty bad, but because it's a phone recording Instagram story, but you might like it. Somebody might like it.
That's on your Odyssey, right?
Yeah, I don't have anything else.
No, that's what I thought. So it's just Odyssey for Carl.
Yeah. Although I guess it's Matti Kurki 1280, but Birkarl, you will find it if you search.
Okay, great. Okay, on that note, I will bid all of our listeners a good night, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.